incredible. And I love that we're talking about this more, just the mental health of, how silver and bronze are still incredible. And yes, I love the gold, and that's what I'm obviously going for. But if I never bring home another gold in my life, I am more than enough. And maybe I can say that because I have won some gold, but also if you're not enough without a gold medal, you'll never be enough with one. And I'm just really thankful for my support system. I cannot wait to get home and see my husband. I haven't seen him for about 3 months by the time I get home, and that's a long time for me, being newly married. But I think she would just be really proud that I'm still swimming. There's not a lot of people who are still swimming. My goal has always been to grow the Paralympic movement. I want people to know the Paralympics as much as they do the Olympics, and I love the coverage and, what people are doing to grow it, and I hope I've played a small part in it.
You played a big part, and we cannot wait to watch you swim. Also, what's next? What do you feel like? I mean, I hate this question because you're like, you haven't even competed in Tokyo, but what else? Like you said, you're more than medals. What do you think is going to happen in the next chapter of your life?
I don't know. I still plan to swim till LA 2028. So for me, swimming's the best form of exercise. I love it. And if I'm still performing, I still really want to be a part of it. But also I really want to write a children's book, and I wrote a book with my sister, so I love that. I love public speaking and just encouraging others. I think in this world we do need a lot of hope, and we do need someone, and if I'm that person to give you inspiration to go out and try a new thing or just pursue your passions or your goals, and I feel like, again, I've done my job right. I remember being that 10-year-old girl looking around everywhere I went before the Paralympics and not seeing another person who looked like me ever. I remember just thinking I was the only person on the entire world that was missing 2 legs. So when I got involved in the Paralympics, it was the first time I started wearing shorts. It was the first time I started just embracing this body that I was given, right? I don't have legs. I'll never have legs. But I also decided from a very early age that I was not going to let this life that I was given go to waste. And I really hope to encourage the next generation. And I'm really excited for the Paralympic movement and what's to come.
When you hear that you're so many little girls' heroes, what goes through your mind?
Oh my gosh, it's just the coolest thing, because I know that, everyone needs a hero, everyone needs a role model. And, I think social media can be such a wonderful thing, but also just such a dangerous thing with comparison. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something I really want to be, is just embracing just who you are and the way that you were made. And I love the Paralympics because it has given me confidence. Sport just is so amazing for girls. And, I've been involved with the Women's Sports Foundation for so long, and I love what they do at Encompass. But just getting girls active and just gaining that confidence, right? Because I think when girls and women have confidence, we can truly take on the world.
Oh, I'm inspired. That was awesome.
First of all, just raise your hand if you are worried about the mental health of your husbands this week in light of this news.
Absolutely are. And not just my husband, but all of the veterans, to be honest.
And Sean, you raised your hand, or you all raised your hands, but Sean, what's it been like having this news come out? How's your husband handling it?
He has been absolutely angry. And I think that's in this space, that's what's hardest to deal with. If he was isolating in his bedroom or, kind of chilling out within himself, yes, that's alarming, but the anger then comes out at those around him, which those around him are myself and our daughter.
All of your husbands have invisible wounds. I can imagine that this news is even harder when you're dealing with a traumatic brain injury. Has that been your experience, Corinne?
Yeah, absolutely. My husband was actually injured in Afghanistan while serving. And so for him, the withdrawal coincides with him associating memories of his alive day from being blown up. It coincides with the forthcoming, 20th anniversary of 9/11. And so all of these sort of timelines colliding together makes it very difficult. I think normally for a lot of patients with traumatic brain injury, it's difficult for them to compartmentalize. And so you have all of these things coming together. And for him, it's been very difficult for him not to conflate all of these things, and it's become very difficult.
Betsy, what's your experience been with your husband, David?
So, my husband, his invisible wounds are suicidal ideations. And so when this happened over the weekend, my first instinct as his caregiver was, is he okay? Like, is this going to trigger him into a downfall where we end up with him in the emergency room again because of another suicide attempt? So over the weekend, I was on high alert, making sure that he is okay. I am very thankful, though, that this didn't trigger him in that way. It triggered him in the way that Sean described for her husband, which was the anger. He's very angry, and angry at the way it had all unfolded over the weekend in Kabul. And so trying to help him navigate through all of that so that he does not become triggered and suicidal again is kind of what we're dealing with here.
And are your husbands watching the news very closely? And
yeah, my husband is on his phone checking the Twitter feeds, checking news feeds. He's watching the news all day long. And I think that's because he was so invested for so long in his life in this war that is the only way he can still feel invested, by staying on top of the news and the media.
And Sean, is he watching news? Is he talking to old buddies?
He's watching the news. My husband doesn't do a lot of talking to other veterans, which of course is somewhat of the problem, not reintegrating into what he had before. So it's a lot of internal anguish, and the news has been on, and he's paying more attention to the social media channels that generally he doesn't. So I think that's what's tough. We want to give them that ability to know what's going on, but at the same time, I think we walk on pins and needles, wondering if, okay, when is too much? And in social media, we know that the opinions are there. So I think that's where it comes in, and that anger can become out of control. And I agree with Betsy too. The suicidal ideation is huge in our world too. It has been this whole entire past year with COVID. So with something as this event in Afghanistan, my husband spent 7 tours there. It is going to be a triggering event, and I'm just kind of waiting for that. When's that moment going to be?
This isn't easy to ask, but are you worried this could trigger thoughts of suicide?
Absolutely.
I know it already has for him. He talked about it a little bit yesterday. It was more in anger. So for his pattern, I would rather see the anger than the that flight mechanism that starts to take a hold. That's when I know there's going to be a bigger crisis. The anger, if he's voicing it, okay, this is good. But absolutely, I'm wondering if this is going to take him, just like Betsy said, into the ER at some point in time.
Corinne, can you express how he feels about it? Is he worried about those left behind, and that those Afghans that helped the U.S. soldiers that were there? Or is it more of a feeling of, what was it all about? What was it all for? What is the meaning here?
I think for Ty, it's a little bit of both. I think it's easy to ask the question, was it worth it? But that's a very difficult and complex conversation to have that I don't think, he's in an emotional state to have yet. For us, it's really more answering the question, did I matter? Did what we did matter? And that has been the conversation that we've been trying to have, that even if he doesn't feel like it mattered at this sort of larger scale, that to his family, to his friends, to the Marines that he brought home to their families, it certainly mattered. And so it's the exasperation, it's the frustration, it's the defeatism. And for him, there's also the Marine Association with courage. It feels like we're running away. And that's been really difficult too, because that goes against, right, what they were taught.
How about you, Betsy? Is it about that question of was it worth it?
Well, it absolutely was over the weekend when we saw the fall happen of Kabul and the Taliban really kind of start making their presence known in the capital city. And those were the questions. Luckily, though, the great thing about the military community is that we are a family. So you asked about the news and the social media, and the Facebook groups and the social places online is where my husband has been interacting with the other veterans. And one thing that has come out of those interactions is similar to what Corinne said. Looking at it as a macro level is a really hard thing to kind of wrap your brain around, but we've talked through, and he's talked through the battles that I were in. Those were what mattered. His comrades that gave the ultimate sacrifice, those were what mattered. So it doesn't necessarily matter that we won or lost the war in Afghanistan. What mattered to my husband was the value that he gave to the fight that he was in at the time that he was in Afghanistan. And so we're really trying to focus on the value of what he had control over while he served. And that has seemed to help reframe it from being so overwhelming and so disappointing of what's actually happening today, and refocusing his efforts on the goodness and the courage and the sacrifice that him and his fellow service members made while he was actually in Afghanistan.
Sean, does that ring true to you? Is it about the feeling he has of whether it's worth it? Is there also that concern about those who were left behind?
Absolutely. My husband has a lot of survivor's guilt to begin with. So I think that what has happened in Afghanistan has amplified that, as well as he has a son that's in the Army. So, we sit here wondering if he's going to be over there or not, fighting again, just like my husband did. So I think that's very, now his macho-ness, probably he doesn't bring that up a lot, but I know that's there, that worry and concern of his son going back to where he was.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30.
We give you a mix of everything you love about our show
In a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day. Our world is facing some complex issues. Chuck Todd breaks them down. Every Thursday, a deep dive into a new subject.
Instead of covering a lot of topics in one show, we're going to focus on one and take a deeper look at how it impacts America.
Exploring and explaining the critical stories that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 3 are now available on demand on Peacock.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just is.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
I want to ask all of you how you're doing, because we know that caregivers are truly on the front lines, and it's not easy to be in your position and be the ones who have to watch and be vigilant and worry and be on the receiving end of some of these really hard emotions. So, Betsy, how are you handling this?
Well, I've been asked that several times, Savannah, but I've been kind of numb through this all because I'm in caregiver mode. I'm in survival mode because my husband is in crisis mode dealing with this. So for me, I don't have time to think about how I'm doing. I have time to think about how he's doing. So in that, I am okay. I am thankful for my caregiver friends like Kern and Sean and the Elizabeth Dole Foundation for rallying around us and supporting us. But this is where we thrive, to be honest, as caregivers, especially as Dole Foundation fellows. And we're in our element here. So we're good right now, at least I am. It's hard, but we don't know any other way to support our husbands and our service members except for being the rock that they need us to be.
Well, we know you are all good in a crisis. It's just unfortunate that you find yourselves having to call on that again. How are you doing, Sean?
It's been tough. And I think it's a accumulation from this past year to begin with. My husband has been inpatient 4 times in this past year. So I don't want to go there again. And when I look around, home and what is going on, what really gets me is my 10-year-old and how she is feeding off his anxiety. And she's been around all that. So she knows what could possibly happen. And that hurts my heart more than anything. School starting. So not only on top of, the pandemic, now she's worried about dad and school starting. So there's a lot of just making sure she's okay too. And as Betsy said, we're all leaders in this space too. So we are really plugged in to our groups online and the caregivers and what they're going through. So, not only are we in crisis mode at home and with our kids, but as well as trying to serve those caregivers that are in our space. And what's most important, just like Betsy said, if we don't have other caregivers around us, that's when our mental health is going to suffer. So I think bringing an awareness of you've got to reach out to other caregivers that are in this space. We've got to do that so that we can continue in crisis mode and caregiver mode.
Corinne, what would your message be to other caregivers out there who are at home and may not even use that word, may not even recognize themselves as that, but know that they are in crisis?
I think that for me, an interesting experience, these kinds of events, but I'm isolating right now because I have COVID. And so I feel like many caregivers who are away from their care recipients. I think of service members and veterans who are inpatient, whose family members and caregivers cannot be by them in the hospital. I think of veterans who are in hospice care or in long-term care facilities who are also watching the news and experiencing this and not able to be direct support. For me, it's been a lot of FaceTime. It's been a lot of text messages. It's been a lot of phone calls and checking in. We've been meeting out in the backyard, and socially distancing and trying to check in with each other. And so I think that for caregivers who don't necessarily recognize their own roles yet, I hate to say, but this is a really good example of a period of self-reflection to say, do I find myself being more supportive to my veteran than I am to myself in this moment? Am I having to de-escalate? Am I having to talk through things? Am I having to try and distract away and monitor access to television and social media? Do I find myself having to do those things? And if the answer is yes, then I think the best thing that we can say is welcome. Welcome to our community. Welcome to being one of us. And you're not alone. There's a whole social and physical network out there of military and veteran caregivers who are doing this work every day, and there are resources in place. So when you stop fixing, come and hang out with us.
I've heard that so many times over the years working with caregivers, that when I say, what do you need or what helps, there's all the kind of practical needs, but that the number one thing caregivers have always shared with me is just belonging to this community and not feeling alone and feeling like you have someone to talk to?
Well, even when we got on the Zoom, Savannah, this morning, and I see Sean and Corinne, it just immediately brings my mood to a place where, like, all right, I got this, right? We're in this together. We're experiencing this together. We've come to this together, and we're going to get through it, supporting one another and together.
Sean, what does this community mean to you?
The world. I would not be in a good mental health place without the caregivers that I know around me, that I know I can text, I can call, I can vent, I can say the good things and the bad things, and there's no judgment. It's a safe place. And I know that they can lean on me too. So without that, I don't think that this caregiving spot that I find myself in would be as fulfilling as it is without other caregivers and the Elizabeth Dole Foundation support behind us. I just cannot stress enough to reach out and make sure that you're in a space. You have to put yourself in a space where there's other caregivers and other support. And the Elizabeth Dole Foundation is right here waiting for those caregivers.
And last thing, we haven't talked about the politics, whether it's right or wrong that we withdrew, whether it was handled well. We're setting all that aside for the purposes of this conversation, but what would you like to hear from our leaders, specifically to our veterans and to you, the caregivers who are helping them through this really difficult time? Betsy?
Thank you for asking that question. And I really think it is, how is our government going to support the veterans that did go to Afghanistan now as they are suffering? And it has to be more than a few social media posts and a few public appearances. It really needs to be comprehensive behavioral health programming for our veterans so that when these crisis moments happen, they are prepared for it. And the onus isn't on us as the caregivers to get them through it. So I would appreciate some kind of acknowledgement that they are suffering and they are committed to their mental health and their well-being.
Corinne?
For me, I would say that it's important to reaffirm with a genuine sense of compassion and understanding that our veterans matter, that their experiences matter, that their service matters. And so I think that in some of those statements, that has been lacking a little bit. And some of that is just the inability to understand unless you were there. And it's the same thing that we find ourselves in, being a sympathetic ear and a support mechanism without a true, genuine experiential understanding. And so for me, for my husband, that's the big question. And that's the one that he would like to feel has been answered, which is, tell me that I mattered. Tell me that we all mattered. Look at a Gold Star family in the face and tell them it mattered.
Sean, I'll let you have the final word.
Well, I agree with both of them. I think our leaders need to stand up and make sure that they are stating that your time in Afghanistan mattered. And that is not only on a national level. We need to hear it in our communities as well. From the leaders in our communities, they need to understand that they have got to make a point to say your time in service in Afghanistan mattered, not only to the veteran, but to the family members and the caregivers. We see you too. We know what you are doing behind the scenes as your veterans are experiencing the range of emotions that they are going through. So it has to be that as these veterans are seeking out help, that we make sure that those professionals that they're going to also look past the veteran and look into the family and how that they can support in a holistic way the entire family, because the entire family needs support right now.
Well, I hope we are shining a light on all of you. You're my heroes. I wish I could wrap my arms around you, but thank you for your service, because I think caregivers give service to our country every bit as our veterans. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just did.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just did.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
There's kind of this life to caregiving. Sometimes it feels like a constant game of curveballs.
We were in this alone and just trying to figure out everything, and then him adjusting back to civilian life was just so challenging. That sometimes I just didn't have answers.
Kara Benson of Cocoa Beach, Florida, and Teresa Smith of Big Lake, Minnesota, live hundreds of miles apart, but are close at heart. Both women are caregivers for their veteran husbands. Kara's husband, Eric, was an Army combat engineer in Iraq. He sustained blast and chemical exposures and now suffers from a traumatic brain injury and degenerative neurological issues.
He was injured in 2003, but to put it into perspective, we didn't receive even a partially firm diagnosis until 2018. There were so many years of this is wrong, and doctors saying, well, we don't know. It's in your head.
Teresa's husband, Jason, also suffers from a traumatic brain injury after being injured in an IED blast in Afghanistan in 2009.
I remember pretty vividly just the hot embers falling and just the darkness turning into light, and the feeling, the concussion. I shrugged it right off. I was back to work within a day.
Their husbands returned from deployment changed men, while their wives tried to pick up the pieces, suffering in silence themselves as the stress of their new roles as caregivers took a toll.
It was very isolating and very infuriating. And at that point in time, we didn't have a support network. We didn't have caregivers that I knew. I was just learning the system to help him out. And so it was so infuriating and so lonely to fight that fight.
But 4 years ago, that fight got a little less lonely with the creation of the Hidden Heroes campaign by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, providing veteran caregivers with the help and recognition they so deserve. Hidden Heroes connects caregivers to helpful resources and each other.
Hidden Heroes has given me a voice, a sense of belonging.
For me, it's been life-changing. There is a camaraderie that comes in the darkest hours, really.
And now both Teresa and Kara want to help light the way for other struggling caregivers. They have been selected to be Hidden Heroes Fellows, an honor for 225 caregivers around the country to serve as allies for other caregivers and give a voice to the voiceless.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to be easy, you know. But that doesn't mean because you fail sometimes doesn't mean that, you know, you give up.
Don't give up, even if you have to take it minute by minute, step by step, even if you cannot see the finish line. And know that you don't have to do it alone. We'll be there to help you along when you need it.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30.
We give you a mix of everything you love about our show
In a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
And it is our pleasure to be joined now by Teresa and Jason Smith, Kara and Eric Benson, and 4 other Hidden Heroes Fellows and their families. We have the Poyer family, the Collins family, the Pabin family, and the Bristol family. And their heroes are here. And now you know the true story. The caregivers are heroes too. Kara, we just met you and heard a little bit about your story in the piece. How do you get up every day? Where do you fill your tank? Where do you find your resources to go forward every day, even on the hard ones?
I think getting the network has really helped me find the resources. Caregivers are a wealth of information, and the more you connect with each other, the more we can share that information. And filling my tank is taking those 5 minutes out of the day, whether it be to connect with the caregivers, see how they're doing, connect with a friend, listen to music. Just that 5-minute checkout does absolutely wonders when you are caregiving for a husband and multiple children.
Yeah, you got your hands full. We say good morning to the whole family there.
First of all, I just want to comment that when you came rocking up here with your braids, I was in my head applauding because I remember the story. Yes. You were at AT&T. It was one of your first big jobs. You had braids. Like, what did they tell you?
Yes, they told me that my braids and my red shoes were unprofessional.
Oh.
And I mean, they meant it. And they were trying to help. I mean, that's the part that's the irony of it all. They're really trying to help me. And they said, you have to get rid of that. So I went home, and my mom and my oldest sister, Cassandra, stayed up all night with me taking my braids out.
Because you wanted to fit.
Oh, I wanted to fit.
You've been breaking the mold for most of your life. Yes. You have been someone who just makes your way through, but I want to go way, way back. Okay. Because I think we're all shaped from when we're little kids.
Yes.
And when you were a little kid, you were scared.
Yes, I was scared. I was scared. Domestic violence was part of our family.
Where did you put that part of your life when you were a little girl?
We hid it. I mean, people didn't know that my mom was a victim of domestic violence. They didn't know my dad was doing the things he was doing. And so we just hid it, just like they hid it, until it just got to a point where my mom decided she wasn't going to deal with it anymore.
As a little girl, how did you feel when you couldn't protect her?
It was tough. And there were 6 of us. I mean, so we'd get in each other's rooms, or, you know, we'd sit on the couch and we'd hear things. And it got to a point when my brother was getting ready to graduate from high school and I was 15. It got to the point where we had to call the police because it was graduation day, and he just went crazy. And we called the police, and they came and got us. My mom says we have to go to the graduation. So we still did that. And then we went to Cassandra's house and stayed the whole summer. And that was it.
Did he think that you could ever become somebody?
No, and that was the painful part. He told my youngest sister and I that summer that we would be hookers on the street without him. And that was so painful. I mean, it was so painful, but there were years where I would think about that every single day, that he actually said that. And that's when my younger sister cried, I cried, and I don't know where it came from. I was 15 years old. And she said, "Is that true?" I said, "That's not true." Because I guess I just dug into like everything my mom had taught us, that we are not going to be hookers on the street. I said, I'm going to be the president of something one day.
Now, this optimism, you have, I know who's on your side.
Yes.
God's on your side.
Yes.
And your mom has placed that on your heart since you were a little girl.
Yes. Math book in this hand, Bible in this hand.
Yeah. So did you always feel protected somehow, that God was going to watch out for you no matter how bad things got?
Yes, I always felt that. I mean, I always felt that. And my mom used to like take all 6 of us to church, and we'd walk to church. And she'd walk us up Cutting Boulevard and then 23rd Street, and she'd give us scriptures. The 23rd Psalm, she'd give us scriptures about protection. And so I just always felt that God was going to protect me, but I always felt that other people would protect me too. So I always felt like somebody was going to show up.
So here you are, you told your sister, we're going to be somebody, we're going to go to college. We're going to. So you get into, where'd you go to college?
The #1 public institution in the world, the University of California at Berkeley. Yes, yes, yes. And not because it's such a great school, but because it was 15 minutes away from home.
Yeah. So you were at Berkeley, you were the first Black cheerleader.
Yes.
You were the first Black member of a sorority, DG.
Yes. Anchors away.
Anchors away. Did you set out to be the first, or did you just do what you did?
No, I just did what I did. And I think that happens a lot. Like, you don't know you're the first. I was a cheerleader in high school, so I said, okay, I'm going to be a cheerleader in college. And I went out for the first time and did not make it, and said, well, that happened to me in high school too. And so I went out and I made it. And then, of course, being in my sorority, I went through Rush, and I ended up being a DG. And I didn't know that I was going to be, I was the only Black girl in the house.
Yeah.
Until I got there.
Yeah.
It's me and 110 of my white and Asian friends. It's like, okay, great. And you know, everybody filling under afro and all that. It was a great experience, but you don't know you're first, you're just doing.
Right.
I was just doing what I was supposed to.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? People really don't know what's going to happen. Only a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Hammers with everything.
All right, it just did too.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Our world is facing some complex issues. Chuck Todd breaks them down. Every Thursday, a deep dive into a new subject.
Instead of covering a lot of topics in one show, we're going to focus on one and take a deeper look at how it impacts America.
Exploring and explaining the critical stories that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 3 are now available on demand on Peacock. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
So AT&T, wait, were you married when you went to AT&T?
No. I had this whole plan that I was going to graduate from college. You know, once I put my boyfriend on hold for 4 years, literally 4 years. Once I put him on hold, then picked it back up, I said, okay, so I'll get married 2 years. I'm going to work for 2 years. Then I'm going to have, start a family. So I had it kind of all mapped out.
I would have thought that you had all the tough stuff in your life early. But if I were God, I would say Sint does not deserve any more tough stuff after what she's been through. But life is funny like that.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't give you all the goodness later. The bad stuff still comes. You and your husband really did want to start a family, didn't you?
We did.
And that was not to be early, was it?
No. 4 second trimester miscarriages in 10 years of trying to have kids. 4. We never could quite figure it out. And then when we got pregnant the 5th time, I said, okay, this is the 5th and final time. This is it. And we just thought there was either another miscarriage coming or a full-term pregnancy. We didn't know there was something in the middle where we ended up having a premature daughter who lived for 6 months, so she defied the odds. They thought it would be 2 days. So Special K, it was Carolyn with the K. My mom's name is Carolyn. So Carolyn with the K. Special K's doctor at her funeral, he eulogized her and he said, Carolyn Marshall was here to teach us that we're not God. He said all the things we thought that would take her out and all that, they didn't.
And you said she did have a purpose. There was obviously a clear purpose. But children, you wanted children, you and your husband.
Yes.
So you went down a beautiful road, the road of adoption.
Yes.
I mean,
It's
they're
so
just made for
beautiful.
you, don't you think? Your kids were made for you.
Yes, but I remember it was after my 4th miscarriage. I remember telling a colleague at work when he said, Sint, we have some friends who adopted, and maybe you should think about doing that. Because at this point, everybody's concerned. I mean, I'm going through all these surgeries and blood transfusions and near-death experiences. And so my friends really stepped in and family and said, maybe you guys should adopt. And I remember telling this guy, Tom Villa, I remember saying, Tom, are you nuts? And I can't even believe I told him this. So I'm going to confess, right? I can't believe I told him this. I said, there is no way you can love kids that somebody else had as if they were your own. That is impossible. I am going to have this kid. Oh, I was still grieving. I was cutting up.
Sure.
I was cutting up on that staircase. I mean, I can still see it. And he just looked at me and he said, Sint, I'm telling you, our friends don't see it different. I said, they do, and they're just not telling you about it. So then later, when we adopted our first, okay, and I sent out pictures, Christmas cards, and it was a picture with the judge and our new son, Kenneth Anthony. And he's 2 years old, 2.5 years old. And the caption said, happy holidays, Anthony adopted us. And we're all just smiling. So my buddy Tom calls. So this is years later. He said, tell me that again. He said, what's that? So he had a bad word. What's that? You told me? He said, you can't love people's kids. I said, bye, boy. Just hang up my phone. Hang up my phone. Because obviously he was right and I was wrong.
But you said that your son adopted you.
Yes.
That's what happened.
And he adopted us. He stole our hearts from day one. Little bitty something, literally suffering from failure to thrive, had been abandoned, neglected, born in a bathtub, abandoned when he was 9 months old, with his 9-year-old brother taking care of him for 2 months.
Did your family grew over the years, and that was such a beautiful part of your life. But back to the business side. So AT&T, and we talked about this, they tell you to take your braids down. You do exactly what they say. When you got promotions, did you expect them? Because I'm sure you got plenty.
Never. I never in my 36 years sought a promotion. Never.
Really?
I was just so, I'm a kid from the projects. I was just so happy to have the job that I had and make the money I was making, and things were great. And I got a chance to lead and touch people, which is what I'm all about. And so every job I ever had, I loved it.
So you are 40 years old.
Yes.
And you get the call that any person working at a company for a long time would want, a huge promotion. Huge.
Officer.
Yeah. So, except for there were a couple of strings attached.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Okay, so I walk in, and I walk in at home, and so the call came in the evening. And so my husband's sitting there, so he's hearing this call. And my boss tells me that the board had just approved me being an officer of the business. And congratulations. And I'm like, wow. And so she says, but a few things. She says, I don't want you, you're gonna have to tone it down a little bit. I don't want you to laugh so loud. I mean, you're a happy person, you laugh loud. I can hear it up the hallway, so you're gonna have to, pull that back. And I'm like, I'm not liking this call, right? And she says, and then I want you to cut your hair. I left a magazine on your desk. And these people, they're black people, they're all in white, some event. And the lady has short hair, so I think you'd look good with that. And then she said, you can't be called Cint. Nobody really knows what that is. So it's Cynthia or Cindy. And at this point, I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of crazy. And then she said, and you cannot use the word blessed. I've heard you say that a few times. You just need to say lucky. And I said, you know what? I don't think I'm lucky. I'm blessed. And so now it sounds like you're trying to fundamentally change who I am. And then she said she didn't want all the people in my office. I had to get distant from the people. I'm like, this is going too far. And bottom line is, I turned down the job.
Wait, you turned it down?
Yes, I did.
You turned down the money and the job?
I said, you know what? I need you to help me figure out how to say no, because I don't want to offend anybody. I mean, this is big, and I know it's big. I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't want to lose my job.
Right.
Okay? Because I'm not accepting this other job, so help me figure out how to say no. And she says, you're right. I don't think you fit the profile. And basically, she was saying she didn't think I was sophisticated enough. And so she says, I'll help you. So my husband's in the background. He's like, you can go to my barber. Okay, I got somebody that can cut your hair. You'll look good in white, because he's hearing me with all this. I'm like, stop.
Right, he's like, take the job,
take the job. We can figure all this out later. I said, you know, when I first started, y'all made me get rid of my red shoes and take down my braids. Like, when does this stop? At some point, like, I have to be able to be me. And now you want to change my name? I've been Cint my whole life. No. And so then I got a call I got two calls from two bosses, her bosses, and they started off the call with Cint, and they put emphasis on it. And I said yes, and they both said they knew what had happened, and they wanted to start all over. And I'll never forget someone telling me, he said, the person that we promoted to be an officer is the person who we want to walk in the door tomorrow. He says, and I've been to your office there in San Francisco, and I see your big sign that says, Lord, there's nothing that can happen today that you and I can't handle. I've seen this. And so he goes on to tell me about me and what he loves about me. And that's the person who they want to be an officer and who better show up to work tomorrow. And he apologized. That was so powerful. The words of a leader are powerful.
Do you know how many women struggle with this, exactly what you're saying?
Yes.
Because we are always put in boxes with what to wear, how to be, how to act.
Exactly.
And to be able to have a voice like you did.
Right. It was beautiful.
You were at one point, and this is such a beautiful image, you were ringing the bell on Wall Street.
Oh.
You at Wall Street ringing the bell. And that image is powerful, but what's more powerful is all your history came washing back.
It did. It did. We were outside. So, you know, we had our event with the union that morning and all that. It was, I think, the 30-year anniversary of us on Wall Street, AT&T. And I'm standing on the corner, and I look up, and I actually see it's Wall Street and another street. And I just started crying. And our CFO, John Stevens, is standing there, and he goes, Cint, what's wrong? And I said, you know, my daddy told us that we were going to be hookers on the street. And I told my mom, I'm going to make my money on Wall Street. I'm on Wall Street. This is crazy. So he gives me his phone, and I called my mom. And she just started crying. I said, guess where I am? I said, I'm on Wall Street. And guess what I'm doing today? And she just started crying. It's like, it happened.
Oh my.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
We began our cross-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Hammers with everything.
All right, it just me too.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
So you have this illustrious career at AT&T, and all of a sudden you're retired. You're like, you know what? You worked hard. You deserve to chill. And then some guy named Mark Cuban from the Mavericks is like, look, you need to help us.
Right.
And you're like, who are you, Mark?
Who are you? I mean, honestly, Mark and his chief of staff, they were blowing up my cell phone. So I handed my husband the phone and said, because I didn't look at it. And he came back and he said, this guy doesn't need any money. You need to call him. It's Mark Cuban. And I said, who? I had to ask him, because honestly, I didn't know Mark Cuban. And so he told me who it was, and I said, okay, I'll call him. And he goes, no, you need to hang up that call. You need to call him right now. Right now. And then when I called him, it was beautiful. He wanted to know if he could see me that afternoon, wanted to know if I had been watching the news, that he was having a crisis, kind of explain what was going on with the Sports Illustrated article coming out and all that. And he was so genuinely disturbed about what was going on.
This is an organization that was really troubled. I mean, it was smack dab in the middle of a misogynistic culture, sexual abuse allegations, all of the worst of the worst.
Right.
I mean, you're being asked to come in there and clean up the house, basically.
Right. Right.
How are you going to do that?
And at first I'm thinking, I'm not going to do this. Yeah. Okay. And so I go and I talk to him. And so then once I talked to him, I just thought, I got to go home and pray about this. And that's what I told him. I said, I don't know if I'm going to do this. And 2 women stopped me on the way, 2 women stopped me on the way out of his office and said, are you the person who Mark Cuban said is going to come in and help us and save us? And I said, well, I don't have the power to save anybody, but I know who does. I said, I don't really know yet. And then they said, well, can we talk to you? And they talked to me and they told me their stories. And I spent time with those women standing right outside of Mark's office. And he wanted me to talk to him. He just kind of nodded like, talk to them. I mean, whatever you can get, whatever you can hear. And so they were just telling me about the culture and how women were being treated and a couple of things that had actually happened to them that they felt were inappropriate. And they said, we need help. You have to come in. The stuff in the article is true. I said, I told him I'm going to pray about it. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I am uniquely qualified to help, okay? And so they started telling me what they need, and oh my goodness. So I went home and I prayed about it. I came back the next day.
And said?
And I was in the office for 3 hours before Mark even knew I was in the building. Because I never made it to his office. People pulled me in a conference room and just started talking to me, men and women, about the workplace. And it just wasn't all just misconduct, sexual harassment.
Oh, it was a lot of other stuff too, like...
Yeah, just performance issues, favoritism, I mean, just...
But you had to go in, one woman, and change it. How did you go about it?
I laid out a vision from day one that said we would set the global standard in the NBA for diversity and inclusion, because I truly believe that that's where you start. And then I laid out a set of values, the spell crafts: character, respect, authenticity, fairness, teamwork, and safety, both physical and emotional safety, and said these will not just be on the walls, but they would operate in the halls. Everything we will do, every decision we make, every hire we make, it will be based on this set of values. And let me tell you what that looks like. And so I went through each one of them, laid out a 100-day plan that had 4 parts to it. Model zero tolerance, so meaning hotline, investigation, terminations if necessary, and there were some, they were necessary. A Mavs women's agenda, so really an agenda to educate, elevate, and empower women, because that was missing. And then just cultural transformation around diversity, equity, and inclusion, all that. And then operational effectiveness, just basic things like how you pay people, gender pay equity, all that. And it was about 200 initiatives. We laid it out and said, let's go. And so when the investigators' report came out with the 13 things they wanted us to do, and we had already done just about all of them, he had a press conference. And he talked about those 13 things and the expectations. And I believe that press conference was really sending a message to all of the teams, to the entire league. Here is what we are about, and here's what we're not about. And it's slow, it's slow progress.
Slow. Yeah,
It's
how
slow
much work
progress.
is there to do, would you say?
Oh, we're not done yet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do.
You have been at the helm of the Mavericks during a time in history that kids are going to be reading about for a long, long time. This is a social justice reckoning is happening. George Floyd, all these things are happening, and you're kind of at the forefront. How has it been navigating these waters?
It's been interesting because I call it a double pandemic. And what I told our team is that even when the NBA shut down, I remember sitting in a conference room the next day after we sent our people home, and I said, we don't know how long we're not going to be playing basketball, but we're going to be playing the game of life with people. And so what does that look like? Who do we need to help? How do we step up? And I actually ended up coining a phrase called my new .com, because as a leader, different things were important to me now. Having compassion for people, communication had to be done very differently. Community service was at an all-time high. We have an opportunity to impact that. Compromise, and that really came out with the George Floyd situation. And then compliance. It's like we have things that we have to do, like wash our hands, wear a mask, keep our distance early on, okay? And so those are the things we really start to focus on. And so as soon as we really start to focus on that, because we did a lot with the Mavericks for community service. I mean, a lot. We were out there everywhere trying to help essential workers, even essential workers that needed daycare, meals at the hospital. I mean, you name it, we were there. Virtual, I mean, technology for kids, all that. And then here comes the George Floyd murder. And we stepped up. And we just decided, you know, my boss was having conversations with folks. I was having conversations, what we call true courageous conversations. And so we decided to have a big community conversation for Dallas. And we brought 200 community leaders together. And I said, I want people who represent the systems that undergird systemic racism in this country. And our theme was listen, learn, unite. And so we had a big conversation June 9th of last year. It was beautiful. And we said, well, what are we going to unite around? Because we need to take action. And so we developed something called Mavs Take Action. And it's advocacy, communication, training, investment, outreach, and noise. And the investment is around community investment, economic investment, employment, and just all of that, right? And so it was 50 initiatives where we said we are going to have a minimum 10,000 volunteer hours and $5 million minimum that we're going to put into making sure that we promote social justice. We eradicate these racial disparities that exist in all of these different systems across healthcare, education, economics, I mean, all that, right? And we said we want to drive sustainable change. We want it to last. And so we've been doing all kind of things around that. Even in our arena, I mean, we've had, you know, situations where just very few people didn't like the stand we were taking. They didn't like the fact that our players were playing on a court in the bubble that said Black Lives Matter and all that. The beautiful thing is, I wanted to talk to all of these people. I said, anybody who leaves us, I want to talk to them. They can leave. I mean, we'll get other customers. Let's listen to each other, learn from each other. We probably have more in common than differences. Every now and then you find that's not the case, but usually it's the case. And 9 out of 10 times, the customer would not leave. 9 out of 10 times they wouldn't leave. We need to talk because we do have some real issues in this country. And we have to respond to those real issues. And what I love about our team, what I love about the NBA is we have the platform. We normally bring people together. We bring people together all the time. Our arena, we have 41, what I call 41 parties. 19,200 people at every party. And so we bring them together. And so people expect us to unify people. So why not unify them around these critical issues? So that's what we've been doing.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I look at you and it's hard to believe that you are a cancer survivor. I don't know why I'm saying that, but because you are lit from inside and you don't have, as a cancer survivor myself, sometimes I think about it, sometimes I don't. How bad was it for you?
It was bad. I mean, I thought I had months to live. It was bad. When the doctor says I got bad news, sit down. I mean, it's bad and significant. And then he tells me that I have stage 3 colon cancer, 1 lymph node away from stage 4. And so I went through brutal chemotherapy for 6 months. It was brutal.
How old were you and how old were your kids?
I got that call. I talked to him. I got my colonoscopy the day before my 51st birthday. So my last day of 50. So technically I was in compliance of get a colonoscopy at 50.
By 50.
And so, and the kids, my son was a freshman in college. Ricky was a little older. The girls were still in high school, middle school. So it was crazy. And so we had to tell them. My husband didn't want to tell them.
Yeah.
And I said, we have to tell them because I need these honeys. I need them to be my prayer warriors. And that's what I told them. I said, I need you to be in here with us. And they all responded very, very differently. My daughter Shirley just said, I know you're gonna die. I've seen the movie Stepmom. You're gonna die and you're not telling us. And it was just brutal.
Yeah.
It was brutal. In fact, one time Shirley told me, she goes, Mom, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. I said, why do you think that? She says, because you don't have your clothes on the door the night before. You don't put them on to go to work. And you don't come in at nighttime. She had a routine. It got to the point, Hoda, where I literally started hanging my clothes up on the door. I told my husband, I gotta go in the office just so Shirley can be okay. And so one time I went in the office, I stayed in there, I fell asleep, I came home late, I walked in, I was so sick. Shirley was on cloud 9. She said, Mommy's gonna live. Mommy's gonna live. I said, Shirley, why you didn't say that? She said, it's nighttime. You came home at nighttime and look what you have on. The clothes are on the door. You don't even realize these kids you don't realize these kids are in a routine. They're in a routine.
Right.
And she needed her routine back. And so then I had to just try to get the strength even after a bad round of chemo, because I'd have 9 bad days and 5 good days.
Right.
And usually what I try to do is go in the office and do everything in those 5 good days. But I said, I got to try to fake my way through some of these 9 days just for the kids, just for the kids.
You're so fascinating. When is the movie coming out?
I'm writing a book about my cancer journey. I'm finally writing a book about it.
When you look at all the things that you've overcome, what was if you had to put them in order, what would be the most difficult thing you think that you had to overcome in your life of all of these things?
I would say letting go of what I thought was my plan. That I had this plan of I was gonna have a family, what it was gonna look like, all that. And having that be truly one of the first times in my life where it just didn't go according
just like you thought.
To my plan. And I had to let it go and just realize that there was a plan operating bigger than my plan. And I have proof that it all turned out.
So from what I understand, you didn't set out, if you will, to write a memoir, but your life story, I've heard that it seemed to pour out of you. Is that true?
Well, I wanted to write a bunch of policy papers on how to enable a system to help young families balance work and family. That's really where I started. But people said that's too dry. Nobody's going to read policy papers unless you inform it with your life. And so this book is a memoir, but it's really telling the story of my life to derive the lessons that would lead to the moonshot, which is how to create a support structure to help young family builders balance work and life.
Let's take it a step at a time. You talk about your story. It begins in India, and you paint such a vivid picture of your childhood.
It was surreal almost, because I felt like I was back home. in my ancestral home. When we talked about the swing, I felt like I was sitting there, I could feel the wind, the whoosh. And I almost woke up and said, Grandpa's calling me.
You also talk about the prioritizing of education. Talk to me a little bit about that and how important it was.
Everything was about education. As long as you got good grades, you were given freedom to do other things. But grades were paramount. You had to do well in school because the belief was a good education is the foundation for your future. And that was a non-negotiable item. Homework came first when you came home from school. And report cards were checked. All your schoolwork was checked down to what mistakes did you make. I mean, why did you get a dictation test wrong? You had to rewrite the words, 25, 30 times. So it was a maniacal focus on education. And my grandfather took it upon himself to be the teacher, the guide, the mentor, everything. He was the constant force in our life.
How did they balance the cultural tug of war of making sure as a woman you were going to eventually find someone to get married, or your domestic duties versus education and academics and career? Was there a tug of war, or was it a tap dance, if you will?
Kind of, one foot on the brake, one foot on the accelerator. My family believed that girls should soar and dream as much as the boys. So there should be no difference between the girls and the boys. So it was interesting that our family felt that way. And remember, I was born 8 years after India got independence. India was under British rule for 350 years. The British occupied India. They left in 1947. I was born in 1955. So it was the early years of India. India was trying to figure out what kind of a country it was going to be. And women were just emerging on the scene. I was among the early group of women to go to college, to go into business school. So it was like frame breaking in so many ways. And in my family, it was like, let the girls dream. Do not hold them back. That's what my father and my grandfather would say, and my mother too. On the other hand, she'll say, I'm going to find you a guy at 18 and get you married off, because society expected that. So she had the foot on the brake and a foot on the accelerator. And that's the environment we grew up under, but we knew that my grandfather and my father would never allow us to be married early unless we wanted to get married. And they would make sure that if we wanted to study more work, they would give us the support, which is what the men in our family did.
So that certainly wasn't typical in all families. How grateful are you that you had that type of support?
In those days, you didn't think of gratitude because you just said, hey, we're daughters, we can do whatever we want. In retrospect, I'm in awe of what my grandfather and my father and my mother, to a large extent, because she was part of the society, right? She could have been absolutely vilified and said, how can you allow your daughters to go work? She just said, no, that's what they want to do, let them go do it. They want to study, let them study. She never held us back.
So if we were to fast forward to when you started climbing the corporate ladder at a time where you probably didn't see a lot of faces that looked like yours, you are a woman, an immigrant, a person of color. What was it like sometimes in those boardrooms or when you were sitting at those tables when you didn't see faces that looked like you?
I was among the very, very early group of people to come into the corporate world. So I knew there wouldn't be too many people like me. As a woman, as an immigrant, person of color, in every which way I struck out. So it actually made me work harder and better, because I'd feel like I was in a hole every time I went into a meeting, that people are looking at me like she must not belong here. So I was in that hole in my mind, and I had to dig myself out of it and then earn a seat at the table. So I always came over-prepared. Had more of the material mastered to demonstrate my supreme competency. So in the first few meetings, I would quickly establish that I was a force to be reckoned with, that I deserved a seat at the table, if not at the head of the table. So unknowingly, the fact that my mind took me into a hole and digging out of it resulted in my performing better than anybody else around the table.
In your book, you talk about even just the journey to get to the corporate ladder, right? And all of the things you had to do and speaking up, even when people were speaking up, and trying to interrupt you. Then fast forward to when you were in the boardroom, did you feel confident that you deserved a seat at the table and that you could, hang with the boys, so to speak?
Yes and no. It's like a duck that looks very calm on top, but underneath you're rowing. Yeah. So you feel like, man, I've arrived. You look around and you go, I'm sitting at the head of the table. Inside you've got butterflies. Because when you reach the top, Chanel, you can be pushed off the top very fast. You've got to earn that position at the top every day. As a CEO, the world is looking at you. People want you to fail. More people want you to fail than they want to see you succeed. And so you're always a little bit uneasy. But after a while, you get your groove. and you say, you know what, I'm pretty damn good. And until you get that groove, which takes about 4 or 5 years into CEOship, you still have those butterflies in your stomach. In a way, I think those butterflies in the stomach are good because they keep you on your toes.
Before you got to that point where you said, you know what, I'm good, I can do this, were there any specific stories, are there any memories that stick out in your head that made you say, what was that?
I don't think I ever said I can be CEO at any point. I always was like, I don't know if I'm good enough to be CEO, or, you know, let's not think about the CEO job, let's talk about the job I'm doing exceedingly well. I think if I'd focused on the CEO job, I might have forgotten the job I had to do. And so I just focused on the job to do it better than anybody else could, and just kept going that way. So when the call came to be CEO, it was like, oh my God, I'm going to be it? Holy cow, you know, I'm going to be in the center of attention and I have to deliver, and this is my agenda now. How am I going to do it? I hope I have the ability, the courage, the confidence. You start to question a lot of things about yourself until you develop that sort of inner courage to face the world.
What is the secret to that inner courage?
You have to draw on your reserve of competence first. You cannot do these jobs unless you're supremely good at what you do, the subject matter. So you have to always draw on that competence factor first. Once you have competence, courage and confidence comes quickly on top. And the thing that I was told by my outgoing CEO was, even if you're nervous and uncertain about something, don't show it. Because everybody's looking at you. Show courage, show confidence, show calm. And sit within the 4 walls of your office and think through and struggle with issues. But outwardly show calm, because there's too much riding on your courage, your calmness. So I learned those skills. The great thing is I had mentors who taught me all those things.
Were they all male mentors?
All males. But I was surrounded by them. But the amazing thing is they took it upon them to reach out, give me that advice, tell me I'm doing something wrong, give me experiences that otherwise I wouldn't have sought. So I owe them all an incredible debt of gratitude.
What do you think it was about your work ethic or about you that led a lot of those men back in the day, if you will, to support you and help propel you in your career?
I never, ever was given a job that I didn't deliver. I was about the most reliable person, and I would kill until I delivered for whoever I was working for. Second is, whoever I worked for had my undying loyalty. I never, ever, ever let them down on anything. And I always looked at the job through, how can I make their life better? How can I make their life easier? Because I know what the CEO job is like. I had a seat up front watching it. And so I do everything possible to make their life easy. And they saw that. They said that, look, I remember one example where I'd made prepared a presentation for the board, and I gave it to the CEO and said, here's the big presentation of the board. Could you look at it? He said, have you checked it? I said, yeah. He said, what am I going to find that's wrong? You've checked it through and through, so I don't want to see it. Take it away. But it showed a level of confidence in me, which I'd earned. Basically, he was saying, you know, you always turn in a product that you check, recheck, triple check. And I think that's what made them want to mentor me. And in turn, they got my undying loyalty.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
How old were your kids when you hit the peak of your career there and when you became CEO?
So when I became CEO, my kids were all young. One was a teenager going through difficult years, and the other was entering teenage years. So it was a difficult time, believe me. But the good thing is my office was 10 minutes from home, and the young one's school was 10 minutes from the office. So I lived in that triangular bubble, if you want to call it that.
Trust me, a lot of us can relate.
That made a huge difference, Chanel, because if there was a problem in school, I just ran out. I don't care what meeting I was in, I ran out. If my kids were not well at home, I went home during the day a couple of 3 times to just check on how they were and came back. So I lived in this bubble, physical bubble, if you want to call it that, between home, school, and office, and made a huge difference. Had I had to commute for an hour or two, would have been a whole different problem.
I know so many women who feel like, okay, if I mastered what my work today, then I feel like I failed at home. And if I was all in at home, I feel like I failed at work. And I feel like there are a lot of people who feel like they just can't balance it all.
It's a real challenge. And I do not even use the word balance anymore. It's like juggling. You just have to juggle everything. Even I feel like, not that I failed at home, I didn't do enough at home. And when I did a lot at home, I felt like, oh my God, I neglected something at work. So that tug and pull is a reality, and we have to live with it. I think the best you can do is to say, at the end of the day, I'm going to do the best I can for my family, the best I can for my job, and hope to God my spouse gets taken care of.
I know my husband's like, woohoo, I'm over here. Like,
That's
I'm
exactly
sorry,
what he said. Exactly. My husband always says, your list is PepsiCo, PepsiCo, PepsiCo. Then it's your kids, as if it's not his kids.
Yeah.
Then he says it's your mom. Somewhere at the bottom, there's me. And I go, see, just be happy you're on the list.
That's good, that's good. So was there a time, actually I know there was a time that really kind of pulled on my heartstrings, where your daughter, I guess she wrote you a letter. Take me back to that time.
I think she was about 4 or 5, and I still keep that letter in my desk. And the note goes, Mom, please come home. Please, please, please come home. I love you more if you came home. Please, 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 please. And she drew a cloud and some flowers and her looking up, waiting for me to come. Now, that's a reality, because there were times when we were doing transformations and acquisitions, I was working non-stop. I mean, I had Raj, my husband was at home, my mother was at home and on and off, my mother-in-law would come in to help. So we had family, but they wanted mommy.
So when you got that letter, I mean, it's cute now, but when you first got that letter from your daughter, did it just break your heart?
Break my heart's an understatement. So, my other daughter had a journal entry which said, waited at the window for mom to come home. It's now 10 o'clock. And, our babysitter says, I have to go to sleep, but I have something really, 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 really important to tell mommy. When I read those journal entries, I boo-hoo-hoo in my room, but that's reality, When you only have so many hours in the day and you're doing 4 or 5 full-time jobs, okay, it's hard. So there's some sort of juggling you have to do, and you do the best you can.
Would you have done anything differently?
I don't know. I'm wired a certain way. And to be honest, I studied a lot, I worked a lot, and I loved my jobs. I loved my family, I loved my husband, I loved my kids.
Did they understand that you were trailblazing at the time?
No.
Of course they didn't.
Of course not.
Of course they didn't.
They don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I was just looking at this. When you joined PepsiCo in 1994, 15 of the top 15 executives were American men. Not one Fortune 500 company had a female CEO.
Yep.
We talked about the fact that you didn't fit the mold. You often had to stand up for yourself, kind of hold your ground, as the only woman at the table. What was that like at the time?
The fact that I was different, I was used to it, because all through my life up to that point, I was always the only woman in the room. And forget the fact that I was an immigrant and person of color, I was the only woman in the room. So I was used to that. It was a good environment to be a part of then, even though all of them looked the same, came from the same background. Remember, the ideal senior executive of those days looked like that. So it was no different in PepsiCo. But imagine what it looks like now. The face of PepsiCo has changed so much. We've come a long way.
It's so interesting because you say that you set out to, almost like write policy papers, and now you're sharing, very deep and personal things from your journey. Are you happy that you shared those things with us?
Partly uncomfortable, partly happy. It's not easy to write these stories because you're putting your life out for the whole world to read and talk about, right? And so in some ways it feels a little uncomfortable. So I had to really make sure my husband was okay with everything I was saying because he matters to me more than anything else. He read it, he suggested edits, he said, this chapter doesn't read well. He was a really good contributor. My kids have barely read it. They said, Mom, it should be fine. It should be fine, What are you going to say that's new? We know what you're going to say. You've said it all. They're okay with it. But for me, even looking at the pictures, I'm like, oh God, this takes me back into my life in India, memory lane, my kids growing up. I look at my kids with these cheeks and I want to pinch them and hug them now. So I go through all of those feelings. But at the end of the day, it's a story worth telling.
And why did you want to tell it?
Because talking about what needs to be done to balance work and family and the support structure we need to build is more credible when you talk about the fact that I too went through those struggles. It's not that I was born with a support structure and it was me just sailing through life. I had to worry about all these issues. There were times I had to juggle. There were times where my kids, looked at me and used me as a punching bag because I wasn't there. I've been through all of these issues. And so I understand what people are going through. The big blessing was, since I moved up in the corporate career, I had money to afford my own help. A lot of people today don't have it.
You were able to afford help, and you also had your mother.
That made a huge difference.
Yes.
Multi-generational living. Hey, there's problems with it. Don't think it's a cakewalk, okay? Yeah. But on balance, it's a much better thing to have your parents with you. In my case, my mother and my in-laws helped so much.
How did she react to, this was new for her too, her daughter who was working so much and she was home. Did she ever pull you aside and say, what are you doing?
Now and then she'd say, just give up your job and just stay home. It's enough is enough. I told that to my kids one day. I said, they said, Mom, you never come to school, you don't do this and you don't do that. I said, fine, I'll quit my job and I'll stay home and take care of you guys. It lasted about 10 seconds, that comment, and they go, Mom, you can't quit your job. You've worked so hard for it, Mom, one kid said. The other kid said, my older one said, what I really need is two of you. One who's a mom at home and the other one who's the CEO or this executive so that, somehow we can balance both. So they're very proud of their mom, but they also love their mom and want their mom.
I think you're right. I think it was more powerful before you talked about the importance of work-life balance and what needs to happen to make that a possibility for women around the country, around the globe, that you share your story. But now, is it realistic that we'll see change? I think we've heard people say this before. What has to change in order to make this a reality for so many women around the world?
I think the first thing we have to do is when we talk about future of work, especially post-pandemic and with all the technologies coming in, we have to just stop talking about technology and robotics and automation and start to talk about families, family builders, women. Think of the jobs of the future. They're knowledge economy and there are lots of caring jobs. For both we need women because the knowledge economy requires the smartest people. Women are 70% of the high school valedictorians. They graduate in college at 10 points higher than the men. They have a whole point of GPA that's better than the men in STEM degrees. They're getting 48% of STEM degrees, 30% of engineering degrees. We need these women in the workforce. We want to give them the choice to be in paid work. If they don't want to, that's their choice. But we want to give them the support structure so they can contribute to the betterment of the country. And I think people now are beginning to recognize that we are in a war for talent. And we need the best and the brightest, which means all the women who want to work, young family builders who want to be in paid work, we should enable it.
Well, it sounds like for you, making sure women are treated equally and fairly and paid and compensated, it's not just a moral thing to do, it just makes good business sense as well.
I think you have to think of it as an economist, not a feminist. This is about allocating the country's resources. It's about growing the country, growing the GDP. In a war for talent, if you don't use all the talent you have, you're crazy. And I think the time has come to start thinking in those terms as opposed to, oh God, there's another female issue. It's not a female issue, it's families. We need families. We need children for the future. We need the brightest people, which also includes women, to be deployed and paid work.
There are men and women who are just working so hard to get food on the table right now. They may be watching the story. They're so busy just trying to get through the day that they can't think about policy and laws and you know what I mean. So are you telling them that right now there are these brilliant minds around the country who are trying to figure out in their behalf how to let them find some kind of a balance or a better balance with work and family?
People are thinking about it, people are working through it. This is not a political issue, this is a human issue. And I'm saying that a lot of people are engaged on it. We now have to move from talk and thought to action and figure out how communities come together, you know, how families come together, how we're going to take care of the aging people. I mean, teachers, nurses, I mean, how do we make sure they all come back to work? 2 million women dropped out of the workforce during the pandemic. We need almost all of them back in the workforce because those jobs need them.
We began our Across America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see. It's your last move. Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., a site of our nation's capital, you rarely see. It's your last move. Was talking smack part of this?
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
You're so passionate about this. You're almost out of your chair. I feel it. I could feel it when I read this book. Do you feel like that's your purpose, or what is your purpose?
Enabling young family builders to be able to build their families if they so choose to, but at the same time greasing the skids for women to engage in paid work if they so choose to, and not have to fight all the battles they have been fighting in the past.
Do you think, I mean, well, obviously it's getting a little better. I mean, you walk into the boardroom now, it looks a little more diverse, doesn't it? Or does it? I don't know.
It does.
I'm not in the room.
It does.
It does.
It's a whole lot different.
Are you encouraged by what you're seeing these days?
Extremely encouraged. So you're beginning to see the changing face of the boardroom. You're seeing better decisions as a consequence. It's not just a changing face. You're seeing better decisions, more innovation. You're seeing more discipline. So I think it's changing a lot of things in corporate America.
What would your message be to women in the next generation who are following in your footsteps and trying to balance work and family and a little bit of time for themselves and maybe a spouse?
I'm going to tell them it's a juggling act. I mean, if I try to downplay it, I'll be crazy. But I'm also going to tell them dream big. The economy needs you, needs your brains. And work with us to help you figure out how to balance, how to juggle work and family. How do we create the support structures to help you? Let's work together to figure this out. Because very often we've told young family builders, if you have kids, it's your problem. It's not your problem. You know, it's like when you have a kid, you're doing service to the country. You should get a letter which says, thank you for your service to the country. Think about that. You're producing the next generation of citizens and consumers for the country. So we have to say thank you to you, but thank you is not enough. A letter is not enough. What else are we going to do for you? And all that we're saying is, look, when a child turns 5, the state takes responsibility and says, we're going to help educate the child through the education system. 0 to 5. What can communities, families, to a certain extent the state, I'm not calling this a government program at all, how can we all come together to help the young family?
Let's fast forward 10 years. What changes do you see, or what are you hoping you see in the corporate world?
I think in the business world at large, government, corporate, small business, everything included, we have paid leave for every family, either for maternity, paternity care and or sick leave care. We have a well-tuned system for flexibility or predictability of work hours. You can work remotely, you can come into work, and we won't discriminate against you because you work flexibly. And a beautifully set up childcare system between communities, families, state, whatever, whoever works together. The 3 parts of this care trifecta working together.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
I mean,
it's doable.
Is it doable?
It's doable.
In 10 years?
In 10 years, it's doable if you put our minds to it.
Is that the hope of this book?
That's the hope.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? Yeah, 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Andrew deliberations.
All right, it just did too.
Our week-long journey across America from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just did too.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Last question, I talk about how vividly you paint the picture of your childhood in India. Do you think about those days, especially now that you were able to kind of pour your heart out into this book? Do you think of that little girl in India?
I think of the little girl in terms of how far she's come, and sometimes I pinch myself saying, how did it happen? Is it even possible?
What did she look like? If I saw her rushing down the street, little Indra, what did she look like?
She never walked, she only ran. She always smiled. She always smiled. And if she could walk in a straight line, she avoided it and went over a chair and a rock and everything and then went there. I mean, nothing was a hurdle for me. Nothing. If the boys climbed trees, I was going to climb trees. If I fell and broke my hand, tough luck, I broke my hand. Let's get on with it. Hurry up, let's get on. So it was one of these ultimate tomboys who just thought life was for enjoying.
And here she is sitting across from me.
My name is Harry Smith from NBC News, and welcome to this session of the Atlantic Festival. We're here to talk about a new series on Showtime called American Rust, based on the novel by Philip Meyer. And joining us now, Jeff Daniels and Dan Futterman. Jeff, you know, Dan, you know, for lots of different reasons, not the least of which is Dan's amazing role in Birdcage and being the incredible screenwriter of everything from Capote to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Jeff Daniels, we think, is coming back to work soon in New York, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. Good morning and good afternoon and good day to you both. Thank you for taking the time to chat.
Very welcome.
Jeff, how did this novel, when did it first come on your screen, and what did you think or see or feel about it that you said, let's do this?
2009, I was in the city, New York City, and there was a reading of a new novel by a new author, debut novel, a guy named Philip Meyer. My agent at the time was, down the hall from the lit department, and they were either had Philip or they were chasing him. And Paul Martino said, let's go down and hear this guy read, because Paul was always looking for books in the event that maybe my career would get to a place where I could, get something made. And so we went down, listened to Philip read some of his book, met him, bought the book, read it, and said, yeah, this is something I could do. But I was in no position as an actor to get anything done. So we just kind of kept an eye on it. And then later on, I was in the middle of doing Mockingbird, and it came back saying, are you still interested? We knew you were attached at one time. And I contacted Dan and said, do you see something in this that remind me why I'm still, interested in this? Because it had been too long. It had been almost 10 years. And Dan loved it. And that's what got it going.
There is an authenticity to this that is undeniable if you're like me from the Rust Belt. Did you see that too, Jeff?
I did. I think more so now than maybe back then. I still live in Michigan. I'm around these people. I've kind of come to the conclusion that I am one of these people, that I grew up working class. I worked at my dad's lumber company. I was level, eye to eye with these guys, driving truck, making deliveries, and their worlds and their loves and their hates and their likes and dislikes. And I think that if the acting thing hadn't worked out and I didn't meet my wife of 42 years, Del Harris there are elements of Del Harris that would have been, yeah, cabin in the woods with a dog. Yeah. John
I think I still aspire to that.
I know. John Hyman wrote a movie I was in, and one of the lines is, hell is other people. And so I related. And then now with everything the country's going through, that there are people like these people who just are near the bottom or close enough where they can see it. They're still good people. All they did was work for the steel company for generations. Their father did, and then they leave. Same thing with the car companies in Detroit. These people are just looking for somebody to tell them the damn truth and maybe get a break once in a while, so they can live a normal, ordinary life. That's what I identified with.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app. Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late breaking news.
All right,
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
When you're confronted with a novel, as you've done in the past, or some extant piece of writing, say, all right, let's turn this into something. What was your biggest challenge and especially in this context, American Rust?
Well, the book is so good. And yeah, Jeff came to me and he said, essentially, remind me what I love about this. Because it's hard when you're developing something for a lot of years, and Jeff was in and out of that process. You can lose touch with that. You can go down a kind of a rabbit hole. And Philip wrote this book in a kind of a first person that jumps from character to character, and so in a lot of interior monologue. And so for one, it was turning that into dialogue, and then there's a choice of what works and what doesn't on film. Is a choice of what relationships to develop essentially as they are in the book, or to change completely for various reasons. The best email I got was when Philip saw the pilot and said, "Wow, I love what you've done with this." I mean, what a pleasure and what a sigh of relief. Because he wrote something beautiful, and you want to expand on it, but you don't want to screw it up.
Right. Dan, I think, especially from my perspective, as I say, coming from the Rust Belt, I see so many portrayals of that place that feel to me as not, well, I'll just say it, feel false, feel like we're from 30,000 feet and we're looking down on you some way. Dan, as a writer, what was your responsibility to actually give voice to the people that Jeff was describing just a little while ago?
Part of it is that a lot of the stories of middle America, I guess, are told, it seems to me, from an outsider's perspective, which is not necessarily a bad thing to do. There are great shows made like that. Ozark is one of them, where people from metropolitan area are plunked down for whatever reason in a foreign land. And so it's told essentially from their perspective. That's a terrific show. That's their choice, and that's fine. This is a very different kind of show. It's an insider view of it, and there's hopefully no filter. Look, I don't think people are all that different from one another, and I wanted to try to inhabit each of the characters. As I was writing it, Adam Rapp is co-showrunner. Adam's from Joliet, Illinois, and so he was kind of
ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, he's like a truth tester.
That's that place.
Yeah, in the room. And his mom was he was raised by a single mom who is a prison nurse for many, many, many years, and so having Adam both in the room and writing scripts and doing some rewriting when it needed to be done was essential. And so there was a lot of, Adam, what do you think of this? And he'd say yes or no. Both with expanded stories that we did and with dialogue that was written from events in the novel. So
right, yeah.
People are people, and then also Adam is a huge.
For those who don't know, Joliet is home of Stateville Prison, and all you need to know is Stateville Prison to know the rest of the story.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
We began our cross-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Jeff, I need to talk to you about this police chief you play, because he acts like he's the moral compass of this town, but at the same time, he's absent true north on his compass.
Sure.
It's very interesting because there's a scene in the show where they're in the medical examiner's room, and there are all the lines of all the bodies that have been collected, and the cause of death is drug overdose, drug overdose, drug overdose, drug overdose, drug overdose, and then finally a homicide. There isn't anyone, it seems to me, who's in this that isn't compromised in some way by drug use or drug abuse.
It's everywhere. Part of what I did to kind of get to that authenticity, I read countless books about the American overdose was one. I saw Alex Gibney's, Dan and I worked with Alex on Lewing Tower. I saw his documentary on the opioid crisis. It's there. It's there. It's the receptionist at the real estate office who's dealing crystal meth so she can put her kid through college. You know, you're making choices that are bad in order to do a good thing. And that's kind of where Del Harris, he's trying to hang on to what is right. And yet he makes some choices on his way to getting whatever that is. And in this case, it's the undying love of a woman who's already broken his heart. It's wonderfully complicated and much. And I think back to your point, Harry, about middle of the country and how 30,000 feet looking down. They're just simpletons. They aren't that smart, and they deserve what they get. And that's not the people I live around in Michigan, and it's not these people. They're still good people, and they're still trying to hang on to a decency and a civility and a respect for each other, and trying to do what's right in a world full of wrong. And that's what got me really interested in playing him. The other thing too is we did an acting thing on this, which helped. We didn't want Hollywood polish. We didn't want it to be that thing where it feels false. We want you to feel like you're a fly on the wall. We want the actors to forget the camera and just talk to each other. And so there was an acting approach to this that really kind of non-rehearsal, bare staging, you know where you're going to go, roll camera, and it happens in front of the camera. When it happens in front of the camera, you're connected with each other, which is different than leaning towards the camera in a close-up and beautiful lighting, even though you're in the middle of Southwest Pennsylvania.
Can I say just something? Can I say something just about the drug? Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I'm going to bring up Pennsylvania again, because Pennsylvania ends up being a major character in this whole series. But go ahead, Dan.
Oh yeah.
I just want to say something about the drug use. There's a line in the pilot where the judge says, you know, everybody hollers on one thing or another. To me, this is a comment not just about illicit drugs, and it's a comment about America generally. I mean, what he's referring to. He's on diabetes medication. He just injected himself in the stomach with insulin. Grace is taking Advil. I am on 2 different medications, one for heart condition and one for seizure disorder. My wife takes something else. I bet you guys are on something. It's a and how many kids do we know are on some ADD medication? Or it's a comment about America, not just about this place where, yes, there's also an opioid issue. And so I there have been some comments about this, and I think a misunderstanding about this, that, oh, everybody's on opioids in the show, and it's absolutely not true. It's America has a prescription drug issue that is absolutely pervasive, and that's part of what I was saying about not looking down on this. This speaks to everywhere. This speaks to Brooklyn, where I'm living, in different ways than it may speak to Southwest Pennsylvania, but it speaks to it.
It is. So let's talk about Pennsylvania for a second, because the novelist, Philip Meyer, is from the Baltimore area, but he saw some of this decline that we've seen all over the country. It's even it's rural America. It's all over the place. But he said, I don't want this in Baltimore. So he goes to do this discovery in the Pittsburgh area. And to be able to see these things, those hills, the Monongahela River, the rusted out hulks of former industrial America, from my perspective, creates its own character and gives that extra level of authenticity to all of this. Jeff.
Exactly. It's as much a character in the thing as I am. It really is. It was essential that we shoot it there, and I was glad Showtime stuck to their guns and put it there, even in the middle of the pandemic. They could have taken it somewhere else, but they didn't. And you're right. That's we point everywhere we point the camera, you see it. You see that character of Southwest Pennsylvania.
Dan.
Yeah, not just in visuals. And Buell is made up of a number of different towns around the Monongahela the Valley, but also in the actors. We had a lot of local actors. There's a big community in Pittsburgh, a big theater community who had not worked in a long time because theaters were shut and the film business was shut. And we were thrilled to have them. They were happy to have the work, and they add a level of authenticity to this that I was really delighted by.
Let me just ask Jeff one more question, because as I've said earlier, he used to have a job here in New York, and I understand. Are you coming back to that job, or do you want to come back to that job?
I am back in that job. We're 2 weeks into rehearsal of the remount for To Kill a Mockingbird that I'm doing with Celia Keenan-Bolger, who played Scout. She won the Tony for it. So the two of us have come back, and a mix of a few of the original people, some new people, and some of the people from Ed Harris's cast, who was playing Atticus when the pandemic hit. So I'm very happy to come back. I'm going to be in it for 3 months until January 2nd, and especially with where the country is now. When I did it before for a year, it was before the election, before George Floyd, before all of that. I'm real interested to see the power of the play and what Bart Shear is doing with the little bit of restaging. Aaron Sorkin's done some little touch-ups on the script. It has the chance to be as powerful, if not more powerful, a production than before, simply because of the way that we're addressing white blindness, which is something that everybody in the country is now aware of.
Isn't it something to think about a novel that was written that long ago that is, from that perspective, as current as the second it was written, and that we're still living with?
And even more so with after George Floyd's murder, it's white people are called on the carpet, and yes, this is a white point of view from the book and from Aaron Sorkin and from me. It's a white point of view, and we're doing the show predominantly for a white audience every night on Broadway, pretty much, and they're the ones who need to hear it. Some of them were preaching to the choir, but there are others that are confronting the fact that maybe they weren't aware. Maybe they should read some Isabel Wilkerson and Carol Anderson and Ta-Nehisi Coates. Maybe they should get caught up with what's really went on in America, and maybe this new America that we're all headed towards maybe I have to stand up just like Atticus Finch does in Aaron's play of the book. Maybe I need to stand up and be counted as someone who wants to right the original sin, which is, right or wrong that's been going on for 400 years.
Well, that sounds like a benediction to me. This has been a session of the Atlantic Festival. Jeff Daniels, Dan Futterman. I got some goosebumps at the end there, pal. Really good to see you both. And there's so much more that can be seen in the Atlantic Festival. I'm Harry Smith from NBC News, and we thank you for joining us.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Our world is facing some complex issues. Chuck Todd breaks them down. Every Thursday, a deep dive into a new subject.
Instead of covering a lot of topics in one show, we're going to focus on one and take a deeper look at how it impacts America.
Exploring and explaining the critical stories that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 3 are now available on demand on Peacock.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
And we're back with, it says, one of our favorite segments. I don't know, Steals and Deals is still my favorite, but Mr. Smith Goes To. That's hard. Is my second favorite on the show.
Good one. All right, right? So this morning, this is going to be good. Harry is taking us to Tacoma, Washington, to introduce us to a family on a mission to educate as many people as possible about these untold stories of some African Americans.
So, we're in Tulsa earlier this summer, reporting on the race massacre of 100 years ago. We're in a little community center there, and off in a little corner is just this tiny room with a couple of pieces in it, right? And kind of looking in, and here comes Bernard Kinsey. And he's just this bigger-than-life person, says, let me show you what we got here, right? And he says, but this is a tiny little sample. The real thing, if you want to see it, come to Tacoma later this summer. So we did.
Wow.
Tacoma, Washington has a beautiful art museum. The couple in this picture, it's their name on the giant sign outside.
To whom much is given, much is required in a life of no regrets, and that's what we try to live every day.
Bernard and Shirley Kinsey are here to share their life's passion, a breathtaking collection of art and historic memorabilia.
People always want to know, where do you find these things? And I had to stop and think yesterday. I said, well, I don't even remember how we found it. It literally found us.
What you will find inside is beautiful, evocative, rich, and revelatory. Like this signature painting by Ava Casey, a woman unshackled. On her dress, tiny inscriptions of African-American inventions.
Airplane safety device, blood plasma preserve, seed planters, corn harvesters, phone transmitters, shoemaker cabinet, just everything on here.
Right.
And then you see those, her bracelets are like shackles.
Yeah.
And now.
Yeah, and look at the story. We did not come to America because it was a better place. We came and made it a better place.
In the mural that is America's story, there are crucial sections that are blank. Between the broad brushstrokes, what's missing are details. Details that make it richer, more defined, more truthful, like the service of black soldiers in World War I.
We had 400,000 black men go off to Europe, but they could only dig ditches and bury the dead. The French government asked General Pershing to allow the black troops to fight in French uniform and French guns, French tanks, and the 369th Harlem Hellfighters out of Harlem took on the task. And they fought for 192 days and was the first regiment to reach the Rhine River.
Black history, says Bernard, is American history.
41st and 42nd Congress, 1870, black senator and congressman in the South, elected because black people could vote. In other words, in 1867, we voted. If you vote, you get this, okay? That's just that simple.
History and art that's transparent, transformative.
And this particular piece reminds me of home. I grew up on a little dirt road, in a 2-bedroom house with tin roof.
The piece by artist Huey Lee Smith.
So when I saw this, a number of years ago now, I looked at that and I said, you know, that's me. That's me jumping rope on the foundation of the house I grew up in. Didn't know where I was going, but I was going somewhere.
Somewhere was historically black Florida A&M University, where she met Bernard. Two things about Shirley caught his attention.
She's always the prettiest lady in the room. And she had such courage to get arrested during the civil rights period at Florida A&M.
And while the art collection came later, it's been funded in part. Well, listen to this.
You know, we agreed that when we moved to California from Tallahassee, that we would save her check and live on my check. And for the first 15 years, we didn't spend a paycheck.
And my friends say, oh, Shirley, that's your money y'all spending now.
The collection, or parts of it, have been displayed from Epcot to Hong Kong and seen by millions.
3 things. I hope they walk away being inspired, motivated, and a little bit more educated. I hope they have something inside, one of those, I think it was Oprah who used to call them aha moments. Like, oh, this is why that happened. This is why this is going on. This is what we can do about it.
Walk through the collection and you can almost hear the words of poet Maya Angelou.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise.
Coming to the Kinsey collection, your brain is going to be doing like this.
No question, you will get schooled by what you see here, but in a good way.
We are fully American.
The Kinsey's son, Khalil, is curator of the collection.
That's my wish, is that this is enriching, you know, and that people come and that they get something from it, whether it's big or small, but that they, again, leave expanded and enjoy the time.
We certainly did.
So if you were in the Pacific Northwest, you must go.
We learned something I did just from this piece.
Right? Yeah, and honestly, we're in there for hours. We're in there all day.
Right.
It gives me goosebumps to think about just how it's edifying. I mean, you get in there and there's so much beautiful to see and there's so much to learn in such a good way.
And you were saying that's just a piece of the collection.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got a lot.
I love that you're just... You're
and oh, by the way, they started with $78 in their pockets when they moved to Los Angeles.
Where is that again?
It's in Tacoma, Washington, the big art museum there.
Oh my goodness. Harry, thank you. So here's the deal before we let you go.
Yeah.
We know that you celebrated a big milestone over the weekend.
That's right.
So we have a little something for you.
Here you go,
you're
buddy.
Amazing. Yay! Happy birthday!
Wait a minute. What is that there? Can I...
Don't smell it.
70.
Yeah, don't smell
70.
it.
So that can't be right. Turn it around, it'll say 7.
Oh,
there it is.
There you go, buddy.
70 years old.
You are the skipper to my Gilligan, my friend.
First of all, this is pretty sacred space for country music, and I know you were on this stage before. What's it like to be here on this stage?
Well, I mean, this is like I think I said the day they put me in here that this was for a country singer and songwriter. It's just top of the mountain. That's what it is. It's hard to believe that I'm part of this.
Yeah. And it does, there's something about walking in here where you can feel that. You can feel like that it's almost the holy place for country music. When you were little, did you always want to do this? Could you imagine, you know, being in the Hall of Fame and having all these years performing?
Oh, no way. I had no idea. I just grew up, you know, real rural and in a small town, and I really didn't have any thoughts of even singing or how you could even do that, you know. There wasn't a lot of live music around our little town, and just kind of church stuff is what I grew up on.
Mm-hmm. I read something you just said in an interview that I liked so much. You said you love performing because you can hear everybody singing your music, and this is your quote. You said, you know that your music has really touched people.
Yeah, that's true. I've never been you know, real want to be in the spotlight kind of performer. I'm more of a singer-songwriter guy, and you know, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've been everywhere 100 times, and it, you know, it gets to be a job and a routine, and sometimes you feel like a machine, but you know, it never fails when you walk out there and have a good crowd, and they're, you know, one lady's holding up a sign that this is her 33rd concert she's been to, and another one, little boy this tall, says this is our first, holding up a sign, this is my first concert, and then they're holding up signs of different songs that have meant something in their life, you know, and from Living on Love, and then of course Where Were You, people, you know, I look out there and people are crying, and yeah, there's a lot, you know, and there's a lot of fun songs too, and 5 o'clock somewhere in Chattahoochee come on, everybody's having a big time. So I've always done, country music to me has always been just, you know, a mixture of everything. From heart, most songs are about love or heartache, but or, you know, but country's always had everything in between, fun songs and songs about all about your life, and that's what I've sung about and written about my whole career, and that's one of the things I like the most about country music. So when you walk out there and see people affected by your music, it's endearing.
It means something.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you don't know it, but my third date with my husband was singing along to your music, and I was like, okay, he's probably a keeper.
Well,
I might have to marry him, and I did. And you know, when we listened to Remember When, the thought of falling in love and hearing the little feet, you know, in the hallway now that we have little kids.
Yes, ma'am.
It means something.
Yep, it's a lot of life in some of those songs that I've written, but that I've experienced along the way.
And you've been married for 40 plus years.
40 plus something, yeah.
Have 3 grown kids.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you write about them, it must be extra meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen my music, you know, follow all the different chapters of my life, and it's like this new album. There's a song on there I wrote from my mama when she passed away a couple of years ago, and then I wrote one on there when my first daughter got married. Maddie, she asked me about the father-daughter dance, you know, and if I'd write a song, and I said, well, I'll try to write something. That's tough, but I said, but if I write something, I told all 3 of the girls, this is the one for all 3 of y'all's wedding. I don't want to have to write 3 of them. So I did, and we've used it for Maddie's wedding, and then for my middle daughter, Allie, whose wedding was last year. And matter of fact, she's on some wedding magazine today. It just came out or something. She's on the cover with her wedding thing. Pretty cool. And so that song ended up on this album. But, you know, life always seems to you know, bring something around that I want to write about that makes sense, and a lot of times it's a subject that other people have lived and relate to.
Yeah. Is it true that you still get nervous when you get up on stage to perform? Do you still get the butterflies, or you're used to it?
I'm not as bad. I mean, I was pretty shy when I first kicked all this off, you know, and I hadn't done much in my life like that, but so I was nervous, and I still am. I still have more self-conscious, I guess, than nervous. I guess I've always been that way, just, you know, walking out there in a spotlight on you. I've never, I guess some people love that, you know. I've never felt that comfortable up there, and so yeah.
What do you do? How do you face it? You just do?
Yeah, I guess I've just learned to get through it, you know, and I think with music, it's somewhat easier because you know what you're going to be doing. You're singing this song, if you can remember the lyrics, you're doing. It's kind of a routine, but if you had to go up there and just talk, I don't know if I could do it as well.
Yeah, I feel like the music is what brings us all together. You were here to talk a little bit about a recent diagnosis.
Yeah, and actually it's not recent. I've been reluctant to talk about this publicly and to my fans, but it's been a while, and it's starting to affect my performance on stage a little bit, where I don't feel comfortable, and I just wanted the fans and the public to know if they've come to see me in the last few years, or if they come to see me in the future, if I play anymore, what's going on. I don't want them to think I'm drunk on stage, because I'm having problems with mobility and balance, and I have this neuropathy, a neurological disease. It's genetic that I inherited from my daddy. It's called CMT, ironically enough, because CMT was the big part of my career. I made more music videos than anybody in the industry, I think. But anyway, that's the name of it. That's abbreviation for the doctors who discovered it or whatever years ago. But it's a degenerative nerve disease that affects your nerve and muscles in your extremities, your legs and your arms and hands, and it's so it gets worse as it goes along, and there's no cure for it, and they still haven't found. My daddy had it, and we realize now that my grandmother had it on his side, and my oldest sister is 10 years older than me, has it, and she's doesn't get around too good now. But it's been affecting me for years, and it's getting more and more obvious, and I know I'm stumbling around on stage, and now I'm having a little trouble balancing even in front of the microphone, and so I just feel very uncomfortable, and I just want people to know that's why I look like I do, if they're wondering, and I don't want to appear like some whiny celebrity. It's not going to kill me. It's not deadly, but it is related like muscular dystrophy and Parkinson's disease, but it's not fatal. It's just going to disable me eventually. But my daddy died in his early 70s. He could still walk a little bit, but it is already affecting me tremendously. And again, I don't want to appear like I'm whining about it. I've had a wonderful, beautiful life, and I've been so blessed. I can't even imagine what other people go through. This is not a condition that I would be complaining about typically, but it is going to affect me performance-wise on stage, and I don't know how much I'll continue to tour. I've always thought that I never wanted to do the big retirement tour like people do and then take a year off and then come back. I think it's kind of cheesy, but I've always admired some of my heroes that just, Merle Haggard and George and Willie Nelson still playing out there at nearly 90 years old, and Charlie Pride and Loretta, and people just, they never retire. They just play as much as they can and want to, and I always thought I'd like to do that, and I would like to do that if my health will let me do that.
Yeah, but it does not affect your voice, your ability to write. You have a new album out that has some beautiful personal music, so you're still going to put out music.
I think I would like to, yes. I mean, music's always been the most important part of it to me, is the songs. I mean, the songs are what make the artist and make the music and make the fans appreciate it. I think there's a lot of good singers out there, but the songs are the main thing. So hopefully I can continue to write, and I'm not saying I won't be able to tour. I'll try to do as much as I can. So if I'm coming to your town,
we'll come.
Come see me if you want to. But I don't want people to be sad for me at all. This is just something that it's part of life. Denise and I have had ups and downs all through our life, and you get through it. We've been so blessed, and we're thankful, and I'll be fine with this. And mainly, I just didn't want people to think I was just drunk up there on stage, stumbling around every night, and that's what's causing me to look this way.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody that doesn't really love the spotlight, how does it feel to say this out loud?
Well, it makes me, in some ways, it's a relief, because I was starting to get so self-conscious up there, about stumbling around, and it just made me nervous up there, trying to keep my balance and not look pitiful. So I think it'll be good for me now to get it out in the open, and so if anybody's curious why I don't walk right, that's why.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show, in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Music is such a healing force, and you have a beautiful song out with your daughter, Maddie. What was it like putting that song out there?
Well, you know, we went through the tough time, you know, with Maddie. And most people know the story that when she got married, her first husband, we had a tragic accident and he died. And so it's been a lot of years of healing and getting through that. Well, Maddie ended up writing a book about it. She's a great writer, and it's just a beautiful story and a faithful story, and a lot about healing. And I think it'll be great for a lot of people to hear. And she wrote, one day she came to me with this piece of paper and said, I wrote this song, the lyrics, you know, and asked me to put it to music. And so I wrote the melody for it, and it turned out to be a very sweet song, and it's beautiful. And I guess they're going to include it somehow with her book, where, you know, you can only hear it if you comes with a book or something. I don't really know. But it's a beautiful song, and it was well written for her lyrically, and told her story a little more in there. And so I'm anxious for my fans to get a chance to hear that too.
Mm-hmm. That must have been such a difficult time for your family.
Hardest. We've been through a few things over the years, but you know, to see your child go through that is the hardest thing, because, you know, your daddy always takes care of everything, and, you know, I couldn't do much about that. But you know, it's been we've had some time, and it's brought some good things as well as the heartache along with it, and it's really I think we've had a good opportunity to realize how blessed we've been, you know, when we look at things like that, and it comes along, and you survive, and just thankful.
Mm-hmm. And to watch her heal,
yes,
to watch her grit and resilience, you must be so proud.
Yes, so she's all my children are special in different ways, and Maddie is very, very smart, and she is really. I'm surprised how well she was able to handle all that. I know I couldn't have, you know, done what she's done.
You are one of the most legendary. I bet you don't like that word. Somebody that doesn't like the spotlight probably doesn't like it, but you are known for your beautiful songwriting. Is it something you still love to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't sit down every day and write, but, you know, I hear ideas, you know, and I jot them down or make little recordings, so I do. But I think, you know, the best songs usually come from something emotional, or whether it's good or sad, and those things come along, and when they do, it makes you want to sit down and write something. Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of those instances in my life.
Yeah, your wife suffered with cancer herself.
She did.
And you wrote a beautiful song.
Thank you.
About that experience.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a tough time as well. Mm-hmm. And yes, I did. And luckily, she got through that, and she's healthy as ever. And I'd say she'll outlive me. But Yes, that was a scary time, and I did write that. That song just came out just one day right after you hear that word cancer, you know.
Yeah. And to have 40 years plus of marriage,
Yes.
to have built this family, what are you most proud of?
Oh, I'm just, as far as the marriage goes, I'm proud that we've survived, and I think we've had our ups and downs, and I think now I feel like we're closer than we've ever been, and more comfortable with each other and happier than we've ever been in these last few years. And of course, my daughters are always at the top of the list to be proud of as far as my personal life.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? Our week-long journey across America from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Our world is facing some complex issues. Chuck Todd breaks them down. Every Thursday, a deep dive into a new subject.
Instead of covering a lot of topics in one show, we're going to focus on one and take a deeper look at how it impacts America.
Exploring and explaining the critical stories that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 3 are now available on demand on Peacock.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. People really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses. Private Hammer delivering.
All right, it just me too.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
So this new album, I know you took a little bit of time off when you lost your mom.
Yeah, it was all between Maddie's husband and all that kind of came along at the same time, and I didn't feel like writing for quite a few years or recording, yeah.
Yeah, so when you didn't feel like writing, and now it feels like it's like years of that heartache or just the time in this new album, or at least that feels that way to me. That may not be like what it feels like to you, but you took some time and now you have this album and it seems like it's personal and one that you probably were waiting to write. Is that how it feels to you?
I would think that's, I don't know that I had any special vendetta out there or anything. I just, I've always just kind of write and sung and recorded what I love, and at the time, those songs just happened to come out, and I always try to make an album that's a mixture of all different subjects that blend well together. But I guess if anything on this album, I feel a little more freedom now because I'm not trying to worry about getting on radio and fitting into their limitations that they put on you about what you can sing about or play or what it sounds like, and I could just do what I want to do. So this one's a little more country to me than some early stuff, but some people might not hear that. And I just wrote what I love and about what I love, and I was real proud of it.
And it probably felt good to write again.
It did feel good. I wrote a lot of songs in a short time there, and a lot of them didn't make the album, so there's quite a few more laying around.
There's more to come. What you're saying is there's more to come?
Well, there's always extra ones laying around somewhere, yeah.
Is it true that when you listen to your kids talking and their friends, you get inspiration for some of the more fun, rowdy songs?
Yes, I've had them on just about every album. I think one of my ones that I always think about, even when I'm singing on stage at night. A lot of times it reminds me. I had a song called "Good Time," just a fun Friday night song. It was a hit, and I spelled out the words in there on one of the G with an O, O with a D, T with an I, and an M and E. And where I got that from was going to my girls' high school basketball and volleyball games for years, and the cheerleaders were cheering out the school, F with the R, R with the A, F R A, and you know, I ended up making that chorus like that. You know, so just always something.
I love that. The inspiration came from a high school basketball game.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to come from.
Yeah. So just to finish up, because I know, thank you for giving me this time, but how, like at this stage in your life, how important is music to you?
Well, I mean, it's not as important as it was in my early days. I'll be honest with you. You know, when you're starting out, you got that record deal and you're writing songs and making albums, you're watching that chart and trying, you know, you're consumed with it. That's what most people are, and you, like any business, you kind of have to be, you know, dedicate your life to it if you want it to be successful for. So the first few years, you were 100% all the time, and then as my life changed, then my priorities changed some too. Once you had children and you know, you're enjoying life, and I finally had a little money where I could enjoy. You know, I didn't have anything our whole lives, and so it all kind of changed that perspective a little bit. But you know, at the same time, I've always just kept believing that the songs are the important thing. I kept trying to write, and hopefully that's been part of my longevity, is being able to come up with songs.
So you get the joy just in the purity of the music.
I think so. I mean, it's great to be recognized at award shows and all. I mean, I always just cared about the country music awards. That's all I cared about. I wasn't worried about the Grammys or any crazy thing. You know, I just wanted country music awards. That's all I wanted if I was going to be on any of them. But and I've been blessed with a lot of awards too. Yes.
Do you think country music is dead or hurting?
Well, I think real country music is really not part of mainstream country music anymore. I mean, and I don't want to sound like an old bitter country singer, but you know, it's a different generation. They like what they like, and the fans like what they do, and there's still some good music out there, but there's really no, in my opinion, there's no real country music where, I mean, even though the instruments are going away, you know, the steel and the fiddle, and I wrote a song about that on this album, but it wasn't, my song on that album wasn't to condemn what everybody's doing. It was just my love for the music and my kind of it was like a heartbreak song. It was like a lost love song that I missed that, and that's what I was writing about. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great artists out there now, and I just don't think there's any real country music left. I think there are young people, young artists that love that kind of music, and that are wanting to make it and wanting to write it, but and I'm not that up on the business anymore, what happens, but I feel like they're not getting a shot at record labels, or the radio stations won't play real country music anymore, and it's sad because there's a lot of fans out there.
We began our Across America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see. It's your last move. Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
So, Denise, you guys have been married for 40 years. What has been the secret to this lasting relationship?
That he's been on the road so much. I don't know. I mean, just take each day as it comes. And we've had a lot of ups and downs, and we're separated very briefly in our marriage about 25 years ago, and just keep plugging away at it. You know, when we married, it was for life, for better or for worse, and we've had a lot of better and a little bit of worse.
And I know you have you had your own health scare, your battle with cancer, and that must have been a very hard time in your life and in your marriage.
It was something I never dreamed of. I was 50 years old and perfectly healthy, and
she never even gets a cold or anything. If anybody's going to get sick, it'd be me, and then she had something like that.
And it was the shock of our lifetime, really.
Yeah.
But thank goodness the treatments worked, and
she's tough,
stronger than ever now. I'm 10 years out, and just had to really just cling to my faith during that time, because if anything will set you down, it's hearing that word, cancer.
Yeah. And what about the beautiful song that your husband wrote? Can you listen to it?
Oh my goodness, I haven't listened to it in so long, but for those who don't know, it was When I Saw You Leaving in My Mind, and just his emotions of what it would have been like had he experienced that. So it was a very powerful song, and you know, it kind of gets me even now thinking about it.
Yeah, it really is a powerful song. And now to be sitting here 10 years later with your husband, and after 40 years of marriage, and know that he's going through his own battle. It's a smaller one, but it's a battle. How are y'all doing it together?
I think it's just, you know, we lift each other up. When I'm down, he lifts me up. When he's down, I try to lift him up. And then, you know, we've had other tragedies in our lifetime. You know, my brother's suicide, we had cancer, we had our separation, and then recently, 3 years ago, the loss of our son-in-law, as you all talked about. You know, you're there for each other. But then again, the happy side of that is we've had a fairy tale life. In the midst of all those heartaches and the sadnesses and the sorrows and disappointments, we've lived a fairy tale life. Both of our daddies were blue-collar workers. We didn't ever dream that we would have a life like we've had. And just for him to have affected so many people over his 30-year career, and I would like to think that my faith and the book that I wrote several years ago after our separation has touched some lives. And I can even see in Maddie now just the strength and the faith that she has, and you know how the Lord is already using her to minister to other people and to comfort other people. And so yes, we've had our heartaches, but we have also had a fairy tale life, and so blessed, and just nothing but just thank God that we've had the life that we have had together.
There's been a lot of joy.
A lot of joy.
My name's Jon Stewart. I've been away from television for some time. This is what I look like now.
First thing, I mean, how did it feel to be back in front of an audience? Were you like, sweet studio audience, or were you nervous?
Because of the COVID, I'm still not very pleased, like, when anybody exhales. Like, I just sort of thought, like, all right, let's do this like free diving. We're gonna go into the studio, we're gonna hold our breath for as long as we can hold it, and then we're out of there. But so I'm still not as comfortable. I have performed since then. You know, Dave Chappelle put together this kind of great stand-up series and music series, all this stuff, in a cornfield in Ohio. So I've done a little bit of that. So I was around some audience. Although it's funny, when we did it in the field, everybody had to be masked because this was still early on. So there was no vaccine, there was no nothing. And it felt a little bit like a Faustian bargain. Like, you can perform, you can do your comedy, but you can see no one's mouths. You can see no smiles. So
That's hard as a performer, isn't it?
you look for the crinkle in the eye. You come back off stage, you go like, oh my God, did you see the crinkle? I was killing out there.
So crinkly.
Why would I go back to a visual medium? I could have done a podcast.
Unfortunately, it was my idea. I'm the idiot that cajoled myself. So yeah, I'm excited to do it. It felt like a nice evolution of the kinds of conversations that we've been having on The Daily Show and things like that.
Let's just get this out of the way. Is it funny?
There are hopefully there are moments of humor and levity. I mean, that's kind of what I do. I mean, it sort of starts, if you had seen kind of the things that we've done on The Daily Show, it begins with kind of a more Daily Show-esque essay at the top, sort of a more visual video essay to kind of orient the audience to whatever topic or issue that we're discussing. And then it moves on to things that are probably a little bit less familiar for that audience. But depending on the topic, yeah, I mean, certainly the episode on toxic exposures in the military is slightly less amusing than, let's say, the freedom episode. But you know, it's of a similar piece, and we have some humor in it, we hope.
We're talking about this country. What's okay, what isn't? What are the priorities? That has to change or nothing will change.
I thought watching it, the answer is yes, it's funny. It'll make you laugh, but it also might make you cry.
Oh, well, hold on a second.
Thank you.
I'm going to use that on the, it makes you laugh, it makes you cry. That's going right on the magazine head, Savannah. I'm going to put that in quotes. Savannah Guthrie, Today's Show. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry.
Maybe I missed my career in marketing.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. You're the blurb queen. Everybody who said, I'm going to talk to Savannah Guthrie said, oh, are you talking about the blurb queen?
Oh, yeah.
She can blurb it like nobody blurbs it.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
I'm Jon Stewart. Why don't we begin tonight with something non-controversial? We support our troops unless they actually need support.
There's a lot of it that feels like The Daily Show, but it also is going a lot deeper. And I don't mean deeper into the controversy. You're going deeper into the substance.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's, part of the experience of the last few years has been realizing that some of the things that you believe are the obstacles to certain progress or certain improvements and things that just seem obvious are not what's actually going on. You know, like the Today Show, like you're in there every day, man. You make your bones on volume. Like no matter what, you're there. And you can create that impression. And it felt to me maybe a chance to step back for a second and maybe look at the system.
I don't think I'm going to miss being on television every day. I'm going to miss coming here every day.
Was there any part of you that decided to come back to TV because of anything that's happened in the last 5 years where you felt like, I am dying to get this off my chest? I wish I had a show right now, because if I did, I would say this.
Not really. I mean, I feel like I get things, I mean, maybe that's because of stand-up, but I feel like I get to get things off my chest all the time. I have children. I get to unburden myself at breakfast and dinner almost every day. One of the audience members said, you know, these past 5 years, you've missed so much, the entirety of the Trump administration and the pandemic. And I had to say that, you know, just so you know, like, I am still alive in the world. Like, it's, you know, I think there's a sense sometimes that when you're not on television, you stop existing because that's how people sort of see you. Yeah. It really had more to do with an idea I had about one of the reasons why I left The Daily Show is I felt that I had stagnated, that I really I couldn't think of how to evolve that format in a meaningful enough way that it made sense to stay. And, you know, people have asked me, did you feel the pressure from the audience and things like that? I never felt that, but you do from the staff. You know that, like, you've got this staff, they're young, they're really talented, they're hungry, they're industrious, and your mind's wandering.
I love the people here. They're the best. They're creative and collaborative and kind, and that's alliterative, but it's cheating because it's a K. But you understand what I'm saying. I love them and respect them so much.
And so that's not fair to them. Yeah. And this idea that I had was the first time I felt like, oh, that feels like an evolution to me that makes sense, that's organic, and that I feel invested in. And so I think that was more the motivation of it. And also the children and Tracy have had enough of me. I think that was a lot of it as well. They just thought, like, you know, office in New York, get up there maybe 3-5 times a week. Not a bad thing.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts. Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show
in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
I don't have any specific plans. Got a lot of ideas. I got a lot of things in my head.
We need to talk about this new pastime of yours that happened during the interregnum, during the time you were off The Daily Show.
Yes.
You've gotten a new talent. Do you want to tell the viewers about it?
First of all, very kind of you to say a new talent.
I didn't say you were talented.
I have a new, let's say this, I have a new behavioral tick involving drumsticks. It's something I'd always wanted to interact with music. I think if I could, most comedians I think are probably frustrated musicians. And, I've always wanted to do it. And it turns out guitar is really hard. And I picked up a guitar and I tried that. And I thought, that's going to be like 5 to 7 years before I can just play Blackbird poorly. But I do know how to hit things and bang on them, done that. And so I started that, not realizing obviously the intricacies and how complex and difficult really playing drums is. But it does allow you to put on headphones and put on some of your favorite music and kind of, bang away at it. And I've loved it. I wish I had more time for it. I wish I was better at it.
Okay, how does the family feel about your drum playing?
Well, if you can imagine you're living with an older gentleman who won't stop doing this. Hey man, how's the pizza?
You have the drummer's overbite.
Oh, the drummer's overbite. Sometimes you shut the eyes. But you can imagine, so I'm generally annoying because I like to talk a lot. So at meals, that's annoying. And then when you add tapping, that elevates it to an entirely new scale of, oh my God, when do I get to go to college?
Well, let's go back to the show. You do something in the show that you didn't ever do at The Daily Show, which is you went out in the field and actually conducted an interview.
Yes.
One-on-one.
Yes.
It wasn't humorous. The first interview you did was with our Veterans Affairs Secretary, member of the cabinet. It was tense.
This delay is killing people.
Yes. As soon as I was out there, I was like, oh my God, is this what the correspondents had to do? This is awful. I don't like this at all. Yeah, you're just sitting there in a room and there's no audience and there's the lights and you're like, hey, I think this guy might be getting mad at me. This isn't good. How am I going to get out of this?
It's really unpleasant.
Yeah, I don't care for it. Very tense.
Does that mean you're going to be nicer to the media in this new show?
No.
Should people expect you to skewer the media as you did? Should Fox News be scared?
One question didn't seem to really come up that much, which is, what is Fox?
Listen, man, I was on every day for 16 years. They weren't scared. So I don't think anybody should be scared of anything that we do, but hopefully, we'll still hopefully have that same eye for hypocrisy, or, contradictions, things like that. But maybe a more realistic eye of like what the efficacy of pointing that out is, which apparently is very low.
What about dissent? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you want to bring in dissenting views? Would you ever want to do, dare I say it, a crossfire style interview or debate with someone? Does that appeal to you at all?
I mean, debate is always, anytime you have an opportunity, I think that, like the interview that we did, it wasn't necessarily crossfire, but it certainly wasn't two like-minded individuals sitting down. I think you always want to hear, I think the question is that idea of opposing viewpoints, because it sets it up as a kind of a binary. And I think if anything that I've kind of figured out over the years is there's very little binary that exists other than within kind of a media construct, because as you know, like the difficulty with media is it has to be producible. So I think the benefit of not having to do something with a recipe where the elements of it have to always be somewhat similar so that you can make it, gives you an opportunity to maybe move in directions that you wouldn't normally have to move in. And so I don't look at it as, oh, we're going to get a contrary, we're going to get the pro and we're going to get the con, because so little of these issues really revolves around that. It actually generally revolves around there's an obstacle in the system, or it's incentivized in such a way that these are the outcomes that are happening. So it's more, you know what I would imagine it is in some ways? It's like WebMD. It's diagnostic. And I think it's sort of hard to figure out what to do about something if the diagnosis isn't quite right. And so I think part of this is diagnostic.
What's really the problem with Jon Stewart?
That's right. You hope, or not, or it could be, this could be completely wrong. You know, that can be sometimes the problem with something that's theoretical, is you have this idea of how you want to diagnose something, but when you're met with the reality of it, it's quite different.
It's been 6 years since The Daily Show. Is there anything in your perspective that has changed, or any new information, or just your own evolution that you're bringing to this show that you didn't have 6 years ago?
It's hard to say, because you probably have to be a little bit more self-aware. You know, like, I'm trying to think, like, what have I learned in 6 years?
I'm basically asking you, like, have you grown, Jon Stewart?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you hope, but that's one of those that I think it's hard to say. I mean, I can certainly tell you physically I haven't. In fact, the opposite. You know, you would hope that there's an evolution and there are things you've learned and you do things better. And unfortunately, that just generally leads you to revelations of the things you still don't do right, or the places for growth that you still need to address. It's all kind of, I wish it were, you know, the arc of the moral universe for people is long, but it bends towards better. But I think we all know it's peaks and valleys and ups and downs.
I'm gonna have dinner on a school night with my family, who I have heard from multiple sources are lovely people.
You like to think you're on that kind of nice linear slope up of evolution and betterment, but boy, it's Sisyphusian. Is that a word? Sisyphusian.
Let me get dictionary.com again. Hold on.
Yeah, there you go. You grow a little bit, you slide, you think. You know what the problem is? The problem with Jon Stewart is you don't know what your blind spots are because you're blind to them. And so you can shine a light on one area and grow in that area, and all of a sudden this other shadow appears. And, you know, I think that's kind of that's the whole game, isn't it?
It's very human. It's very, I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Finally, I read that you said in the time after, I don't want to call it your retirement. You didn't retire. I know. I know you're mad at me now because I keep suggesting that.
No, it's not. It's fine.
No, but it's not
anything I haven't thought of.
In this period of time, I read you felt like being away from that daily grind. You said that life got richer and more colorful, and I liked that. But can you tell me more? Like, can you elaborate?
Well, it's probably some. You know that feeling because you are. Listen, man, you guys are there every day, and the harder part about what you do is you're doing what we did on the Daily Show, but you're doing it at 4 a.m. Or that's not a complaint. Everybody's got a job to do, and those jobs have parameters. But I felt like the Daily Show, it's like looking through life through that tube, you know, that cardboard roller that you pull out of a paper towel roll. And so you have a sense that kind of becomes your world, that you're so hyper focused on this one thing that it gives you this really narrow field of view. And then when you leave it, there's this expectation that you've somehow diminished your life and experience by removing this incredible opportunity you had, this incredible success you had. And so you remove the tube, and then you go, oh my God. It feels like one of those videos where the guy puts on the glasses for the first time and sees colors, where you're just like, oh, I had no idea that all this was going on. And it was kind of a beautiful, there was a weird, I think for the first few months after leaving the show, I was a little Forrest Gumpy, like just out in the world, like, how, what? You don't need to swipe the card, you just hold it up and suddenly the groceries are yours? Impossible, outrageous. I love it. You know, it was that kind of thing. So,
you're like emerging from like the space-time continuum.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Rip Van Winkle to it. And I think even to the point of just being able to pick the kids up from school, you know, I had experienced fatherhood in the crying times. Like it was always getting them ready for school or getting them ready for bed. Yeah. So it was always those moments of like, I don't want to do that and I don't want to do that. And you were like, these children seem peculiar and resistant. So having those moments of just picking them up from school and driving them home and listening to the conversation in the back where they aren't as aware of you're in there, it's so much more revelatory and lovely. And so I really appreciated that. And I think that informed how I went back to doing another television show, because I didn't want to put myself in another position where my field of view got so narrowed again. I really wanted to have the satisfaction of the work without that other element of just to the detriment of all these other things in life. I believe they refer to it as balance.
I was just about to say, Jon Stewart, sounds like you have it all.
What?
Ding! I was looking for a good little ending. How do you like that as an ending?
It's nice. Obviously, you know, you have it all, but still live within my own head, which is, you know, as you know, not a pleasant.
That's not a good, this isn't a good ending. Now you're like you're messing it all up. Now it's getting all complicated.
Yeah, that's probably true. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much for doing it. Did I miss anything that we should have talked about that you were having on, that you wanted to get off your chest? Did I screw it up?
I was a little surprised, you know. I asked my doctor, why is my hair completely gray? And he's like, you know, your body stops producing the coloring. And I was like, can your body just do that? Like, so that was just something I wanted to talk about, that I didn't realize that parts of your body die before the rest of you. Like, it's sort of like, you ever go to a deli and it's like 8 and you going in for a sandwich, but they've put all the saran wrap on all the, and you're like, hey man, can I get a sandwich? You're like, no, we put it away. And you're like, but it's a deli and I'd like a sandwich. You're like, yeah, no, we don't make those anymore until tomorrow. And that's what your body does. It's like, it's shut down before you're like, but I'm still using my head.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, no.
Okay, I'm gonna try to work that in. It'll flow. Let me see what I can do. But I'm not a magician, for God's sakes.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app. Our world is facing some complex issues. Chuck Todd breaks them down. Every Thursday, a deep dive into a new subject.
Instead of covering a lot of topics in one show, we're going to focus on one and take a deeper look at how it impacts America.
Exploring and explaining the critical stories that affect our future. Meet the Press Reports. All episodes of Season 3 are now available on demand on Peacock.
our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., a side of our nation's capital you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this? Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Inside Levi's Stadium, home to the San Francisco 49ers, a very different kind of huddle.
You accomplish your individual goal when the team accomplishes their goal.
Star NFL players, staff, and dozens of specially drafted local kids discovering the power of mentorship. After being kept apart by COVID, they're finally meeting in person.
Zoom is cool, but this is even better, right?
Part of a groundbreaking partnership between an organization called 100 Black Men, working with Bay Area boys and girls, now joining forces with the 49ers. Sharing stories and advice on leadership, networking, health and wellness, and financial literacy.
Football is only for so long, but us touching one of those kids, that lasts a lifetime.
Linebacker Fred Warner and defensive lineman Eric Armstead are some of the biggest names in the game.
We play football on Sundays, but we also have a lot more to give than just playing football.
What you do outside of the stadium is as important as what you do inside.
Absolutely.
More important.
More important. Why?
What you do inside the stadium obviously gives you the platform, but what you do with that platform is more important. It's more impactful. Even if you're fortunate enough to get your name up here in the stadium, that will go away, but how you impact people and how you help people will remain after you're gone.
That support means the world to 17-year-old Jonathan Martin.
A mentor is somebody who will have your back.
A star student with over a 4.0 GPA, like so many other kids, he struggled with anxiety and stress throughout the pandemic.
It has definitely been isolating. Just not able to have any interaction has been very tough.
He said connecting with his 49er mentors helped pull him through.
They taught me to keep going, persevere. This is going to end one day. So just having the mentors there to coach me up and tell me that these things will be over with and that you will have a good time has just been a great help.
It's an inspiring partnership born out of one of the most consequential moments in our nation's history, the murder of George Floyd and the reckoning that followed.
We saw a whole world that was really shifted and changed by that moment.
49ers general manager John Lynch was one of those people changed.
We huddled up and we said, what can we do? How can we make an impact to make things better? And I think through a lot of conversation and uncomfortable conversation came, we have to do something.
Did that impact you personally?
Oh, absolutely.
Has this program changed the 49ers?
I know it's changed me. It's changed Fred Warner. It inspires me to want to do better. If I could have seen someone who looked like me and, was somewhere where I wanted to be, saying as a young person, I want to be an NFL player one day. And for that NFL player to tell me, you can be so much more, don't just shoot for the stars, just shoot past the stars. That's why I want to do what we're doing, it's really important.
Warner and Armstead also have a message for kids who feel alone and might be struggling.
At times, you may feel like you have no one that cares, no one that understands. I may not know you, we may not ever meet, but I care. I think you deserve every opportunity to be successful and live a great life.
I encourage people to educate themselves, just be a good person, be a good human being, because at the end of the day, that's what's gonna matter.
Oh. Hello! Have you ever heard that before?
Not from you.
How are you?
Good, nice to see you.
I mean, this day in this garden is just for you. How beautiful is it up here?
Incredible.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
Let's talk Legos.
Legos.
Legos. Was that hello, like, sounded deep enough for it to be belly button talk or not really?
You have to kind of bring it down from here.
Okay.
You have to go.
Hello.
No, not your hand.
Hello.
Then you go up high.
Oh, okay.
You start low and go high.
Hello.
Yeah.
No.
Hey,
Hello.
What's that?
Oh, it's just a stupid thing.
Well, I'm sure it's stupid. It's not about me, is it?
No.
Not at all. Oh, me.
All right. You know this girl Claire I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Well, he and I started joking that when she falls asleep, her stomach stays awake all night and talks to me.
How's it talking?
Well, the belly button's like a mouth. I'm bored.
Okay, so you've played a lot of different Jerrys. Do you know what I mean? You've had the big puffy sleeve
Yes,
Jerry.
on the Today Show.
Yes.
We debuted the puffy shirt on the Today Show with Brian Gumbel.
That is a very, very unusual shirt you have on.
Yeah.
You're all kind of puffed up.
Yeah, it's a puffy shirt.
You look kind of like a pirate.
Yeah, like a pirate. Anyway, we're hoping to raise enough money with the with this.
Look, I'm sorry. It is just a very unusual shirt. It could be kind of a whole new look for you. You know, you could put a patch over an eye. You could kind of like be the pirate comedian.
Yeah.
Exactly. You've had some iconic looks.
Yeah.
What made you think, okay, it's time naturally to be a Lego Jerry?
Well, who doesn't want to be a Lego?
It's Lego Seinfeld. He's blocky, he's stoppy, he has sea hands.
What are we selling here? Lego, the reason people love Lego is because it clicks together. And once it clicks, it fits, it's tight, and it makes sense.
Yes.
And the world doesn't make sense, but Lego, you can order the universe with Lego. You can make sense of something.
Yeah.
If you follow the instructions and you complete the model, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have 3 little kids. Have you ever stepped on a Lego in the middle of the night?
It's painful. Yeah.
It's not a great thing. You're
No.
right that they make sense. There's moments where you want to throw them though.
Yeah.
Does
They're
that
fun to throw too.
is that sort of you? You know, they're like Jerry, you make sense, but there's moments where you're like, no, that doesn't
I've never stepped on a Lego, but it does seem like a killer.
Okay, in this short, you say, but I don't want to be a Lego.
Right.
But you actually wanted to be a Lego. This was
I
your
did,
idea.
yeah.
What was the genesis?
The genesis was Lego made a model of my TV show set, and Netflix bought the TV show and wanted to do a promo, and I went, hey, wait a minute. Why can't I be a Lego? And then I really wanted to do the line again. I don't want to be a pirate.
But I don't
with
want to be
Lego.
a Lego.
I don't want to be a Lego.
I know. Somehow that is a hard octave to match. You know, there's a whininess to that that's really hard to do.
These are some of the little subtle things of comedy that are very important.
So what did your wife and kids think when you told them you were turning into...
They loved it. I got the idea from my son, who wanted to build his last Lego. He's 16. He said, I think I got one more Lego left in me. One more. I go, why don't you do the set from my TV show? We were walking along, and I went, that's the promo. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make Netflix shrink me down.
Shrink you down and pour actual Lego cereal into your mouth. The set is incredible. It's exactly like your
amazing.
set. Tell me some of the details you loved.
I love the couch, and I love the refrigerator and the stove. And I love wearing the costume. Some of those bits, like, when I skate out in the end, that took an hour and a half of moving an inch at a time. And when I sit down on the couch, that took an hour and a half. Because stop motion is not done with humans.
Yeah.
It's done with props. The last person to do it was Peter Gabriel, Sledgehammer.
Oh, really?
Yes. Humans don't do stop motion. We do it with toys and props. You don't ask a person to do this, and now this, and now this,
But the fact that, so first of all, somebody told me about this, and I thought, no, Jerry Seinfeld's not becoming a Lego. And then they told me you shot it last week.
Yeah, last week.
So how much fun was it? There was a lot of laughter.
It was insane. It was just this crazy, everybody We had to hire an animation company to do the stop motion because I wanted it to be stop motion. And then to build that set, that was all custom made out of foam and then paint and then the plastic finish to make it shiny. I mean, we worked so hard on it. Well, it was so much fun.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
So the amazing Bryan Cranston, who is a Tony winner, an Emmy winner,
Yeah.
Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
You call him on the phone and you're like, hey, you want to be a Lego?
He's not a
Well,
Lego.
he's an announcer.
He's an announcer.
Coming this fall to Netflix. Seinfeld.
You call him on the phone and say, want to be in a Lego short?
Yeah,
And his response was,
love to. He says, I don't know what you're talking about, but I trust you. That's what he said. Did you notice the little dentist chair at the end?
I sure did.
That's
Was
the
that
little,
a nod to him?
I think that's a cookie, what we call a cookie.
Okay, I thought maybe that would have been a stranger conversation, but it was just pretty basic. Want to be in a Lego short? Let's do it.
If you're a comedy person, which Bryan is, even though he's done a lot of
Yes.
drama, and someone gives you a crazy idea, you go, yeah, that sounds crazy.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Our week-long journey across America from Washington, D.C., a side of our nation's capital you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
So the last couple years, people have been at home on their couches.
Right.
Is there like a lot of creativity spurring up in you? Is that why things like this are happening, or not really?
Maybe. I didn't think about that, but maybe. I personally have a feel like I really need to have some fun. I really need to make fun things for people.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to do this. I go, this is just fun and silly, and I don't see enough of that.
Yeah.
I like that.
It will make people laugh for
Yeah.
sure. So Netflix has picked up all of these episodes.
Yes.
Do you think the world's ready?
I don't know. They weren't when we started back in '89, that's for sure. It took a number of years before people said, what are they talking about? How do they talk?
I know, that's kind of interesting. So it didn't catch on right away?
No, it took 4 years. The first 4 years of the show, it was poorly received, very poorly received. That's forgotten now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how did you all have the patience just to wait it through?
Well, in those days, on television, if you got a good demo, the advertisers wanted to be on your show. So even though we were not good, we got a certain audience that was buying like BMWs. So that kept us on the air.
Tell me about being a Lego, transforming. It did not look comfortable, I have to tell you.
It was okay. I was fine with it. I just wanted to be it so bad. I wanted to be in the toy. Seems like, you know,
So
if you bought that toy,
yeah,
and you could get me shrunk down in it, wouldn't that be the ultimate?
I'd be very into having you as a Lego, but I have to tell you, I was worried about you because it looked like there was a little bit of a wedgie in this area.
Yeah. There's lots of
just between you and me. Was there a little wedgie?
A lot of issues below the waist.
It looked like it.
Yeah.
I mean, that round area. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I loved Netflix's press release. It was brilliant. Did you read it?
The new show thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It said Netflix will launch 180 episodes of a situational comedy called Seinfeld, created by rising New York comedian Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, who wrote for Saturday Night Live for a single season.
That's right.
So how did you feel about, the fact that they would take a chance on a young New Yorker just like you? Did that feel good?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
did.
And to make that many shows, not knowing if anyone was going to like it, it was quite a gamble.
It really was. Thank you, Netflix.
Yeah.
Sitting here with this beautiful view in Rockefeller Center, New York's been through a lot.
Yes.
You wrote a really beautiful article that I feel like everybody posted online. What does it feel like to be here on this day, beautiful fall day in a city that you love so much?
I am humbly proud of that I stuck up for my town.
Yeah.
I just love this town.
Yeah.
And, I know, I grew up all around here, so you know the people, you know what they're made of. You're not getting rid of this. There is nothing like this anywhere in the world.
There's a resilience.
Yes, yes.
Right. And on a day like this, there's nowhere better to be.
No, it has New York on a beautiful day is really magical.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering, as a Lego, could Elaine do her dance? Like, what would that look like?
There'd be a lot of clicking and
Yeah.
clacking.
Kind of like in the knee area?
Yeah, some of the plastic might crack.
Now, does a Lego have a belly button?
No,
So,
just shirt buttons.
How would you talk from your belly button? That'd be a really hard thing.
Well, we're not going to do the whole series. I have to tell you the truth. It was really just a joke.
Oh, you're not I
No.
thought you were doing the whole series as a Lego.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it looks, but no, we couldn't do it.
Too expensive, right?
Yeah.
These days.
We began our cross-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? We began our cross-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
The biggest grievance of 2021 so far. And you don't have to have one if you don't want one. But
Oh,
do you
I've
have
got
one?
tons. Sounds like a plan. That's because it is a plan. That's what the sound was. Just tell me what time you want to meet. Stop saying the thing sounds like a plan.
You know what? Actually, Hoda and I and actually Savannah, we're in a fight over the word literally because we think it's overused.
Way overused.
Are you on my side?
Totally.
They're like,
Totally
well,
could go
literally,
too, by the way.
literally, it's freezing out here. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's just cold.
It's just
If
freezing.
it was literally freezing,
Yeah.
you would have frostbite.
That's right.
Okay, so you want to tell Hoda that you're on my side?
I'm on Jenna's side, Hoda. Stop with the literally.
Thank you.
It's not a book to begin with.
Yeah, if we want to talk literal,
Yeah.
let's go to talk Jane Austen. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You go away from New York for a couple months. What's the first thing you do when you come back?
Just walk. A walk in New York is like reading a novel. You see snippets of, you know what I love? That people yap on the phone out loud. I love hearing half a conversation.
I do too.
It's fun, right? I don't find it annoying.
No,
I really
don't
like
find it annoying. In fact, when we go to restaurants, I'm like, honey, they're getting divorced. She's like, can you pay attention to me?
Yeah.
It's hard not to. Musical artist that you listen to that would surprise some people. Do you like music?
I love music. That would surprise some people.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would surprise them. I really love John Denver.
That's not a surprise.
I love America. I love the band America. And I really love Malo, who they had a song called Suavecito, which is my favorite song.
Is it really?
Suavecito?
Can you sing a little bit of Suavecito to me?
La 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 la. Sound familiar? No. You know this song, Jenna. You know this song.
Suavecito?
You know Suavecito. You don't know that you know it. It's one of the greatest Latin.
Suavecito.
Yeah.
Is that it?
No.
I'm thinking Despacito.
It's not Despacito.
Do you know Despacito by
yes,
the Bieber?
Despacito no es suavecito.
Okay.
Es diferente.
So I felt like I needed to say hello. Is that better?
Right.
No.
Is it what?
Was that better? Hello.
Hello.
Okay. What's the number one Seinfeld line that people yell at you when you're walking the streets?
They yell, where's Kramer? A lot. I don't know why I'm expected to be with him at all times. They yell, where's Kramer?
What do you say?
I go, he's not real.
He's not real. This is sort of a strange one, but last picture you took on your iPhone. I hope only if it's not appropriate.
It's always, of course, I don't do anything not appropriate.
Okay,
the
good.
last picture I took, well, it's a small story.
Okay, we've got the time as long as you do.
I watch a lot of YouTube. I like funny pet stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw
know you do.
a
There's your
bulldog
wife.
riding a skateboard. And it was so cute, and I was so fascinated. And I just thought that they just showed how this bulldog, he just loves his skateboard. He loves it. And I go, that explains so much of life right there. He just loves it. And there's no reason why. No one will ever understand why. He loves that skateboard. So later on that day, I was walking from 69th in New York to Columbus and 81st. And as I was getting up to Columbus and 81st, I saw a bulldog and a woman, same day, a woman carrying his skateboard.
Was it the same bulldog?
No.
And did you take a picture of it?
Yes.
And did you send it to your wife?
No.
Okay. I thought maybe you'd share it. I know she likes funny pet videos
I told the story. The picture wasn't great.
A little blurry.
Yeah, but it was amazing.
So I just have to go back to the fact that you like funny pet videos. Do you find comfort in them, humor? What is it?
I don't really have a pet. I know
You do have a pet. You have Javier.
I'm not. It's not. He and I have no real relationship.
Wait, your wife is going to take real offense to this.
No, it's her thing.
You don't like cats?
They're okay.
But Javier is marrying my sister's cat.
That's fine.
You're not going to be at the wedding?
I guess I will.
You don't really like a cat.
I like that my wife enjoys it.
Okay.
And when he gets lost, I go looking for him.
Well, Javier does not go outside on the streets of New York, does he?
No, but we have a house on Long Island, and sometimes he will escape.
Okay, well, that's nice. So you do secretly love the cat?
Okay, secretly.
Okay, I thought
Let's keep it a secret.
All right, don't tell anybody.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Is it easier to pass a bipartisan bill right now than it is to pass a Democrats-only bill? This supply chain issue has been a problem for months. Do you concur that this is going to get worse before it gets better? Are you concerned about the direction of your party? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Excuse me, I think you forgot my bread.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3! What? No soup for you.
You want bread? $3! No soup for you. How would I describe the soup Nazi? Is I just thought he was a very militant food vendor who didn't take crap from anybody and ruled his soup station with an iron fist. And I even went into the original audition in an army uniform with a beret, so I looked like Saddam Hussein. You're pushing your luck, little man.
Sheila! Hey! Uh-oh. What is this? You're kissing in my line? Nobody kisses in my line!
My favorite line is the kissing line, and I was doing a thing for Sony once called the Seinfeld Food Truck, where we were going to different locations, and for 2 hours people would line up and get treats. And I very seldom get the chance to say that line, and there was one couple in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who were brave enough to stand there and start making out in front of me, and I finally got to say, like, "You're kissing in my line? Nobody kisses in my line!"
The main thing is to keep the line moving. So you hold out your money, speak your soup in a loud, clear voice, step to the left and receive. So right.
The step to the left part, it's been made fun of so often. I've had people come up to me and like stand like that and step to the left. And going to the actual real soup stand, I finally found out that the reason you step to the left is the menu board is to your right. So if you order and stay there, no one else could see the menu. So there actually is method to the madness. I actually say no soup for you a lot these days, but in the first 3 years after the episode, I refused to say it. I wouldn't say it for anybody. When I was nominated for the Emmy, I had interviews with a few big TV shows, and I refused to say it for them because I just thought I'd sound like a bad water cooler impression of myself out of context. And then when we shot the finale, the very first scene we shot was actually a silent scene at this bed and breakfast where I take Poppy's soup bowl away from him because he motions that he wants salt and pepper. And Jerry and Larry David decided that I should say No Soup for You out loud, even though you weren't going to hear it in the show, which absolutely terrorized me. But I said it, and as we walked away from that scene, Larry David walked over to me and he goes, "Hey man, you say it the same way you said it 3 years ago." So ever since then, it's like a knee-jerk. There was a lady named Marcia who was in the extra pool. And they had built the soup stand a little longer than they planned, so for me to go to the cash register and back to serve the soup was killing the timing of the lines. It was just taking too long. So they called this girl out from the extra pool because she looked like she would be working in my stand, and her name was Marcia. And she, at a moment's notice, did that thing where she pulls the bag away from George and hands him the money back. It actually got more laughs than anything I did. And to this day, when I see that scene over and over again, I laugh at her timing.
The guy who runs the place is a little temperamental, especially about the ordering procedure. He's secretly referred to as the soup Nazi.
Working with that cast was just amazing. Jason Alexander was calling me La, which is the New York shortening of Larry. There's Lawrence, Larry, La, but that's New York. And he was calling me that within about an hour of me being on the set. Julia was incredible because if I made her laugh, she would totally break up and she'd grab my hand and go, "You're so funny." So they were so welcoming. But the most amazing story to me is Jerry himself, because I've dealt with a lot of producers and directors in the world of theater, TV, film, everything. I've done some directing myself, and I know what that's like. But I've never worked with a director and producer who had less ego than Jerry Seinfeld.
Medium crab bisque.
When I did the callback, I did the 6 scenes that the Soup Nazi has, and he laughed a lot. It was great. He was laughing too much, actually. And then he had me do it again, and he said, "You know, I don't understand why the character is so mean. Could you, kind of do it again and give it some of this, be a little nicer sometimes?" Which I did horribly. I don't think he laughed once. And I thought for sure that was, the death nail about the character. I wasn't going to get it. But I did get it, and as soon as I walked onto the soundstage, Jerry beelined over to me and he said, "You know what, man? Forget about the direction I gave you. Just do what you did when you walked in. The meaner, the funnier, I guess." And I was just astounded by his lack of wanting to be right, which almost every other director and producer has. I could go a long time without being recognized, but every once in a while, somebody will say to me, "Has anybody ever told you look like the Soup Nazi from Seinfeld?" And depending on if I have time to talk about it, because sometimes I'm in a rush or something, so I'll just say "Yeah, I get that a lot." And other times, I get to go "Yeah, I was him." And it's always fun because Seinfeld fans range from 13 years old to 83 years old, A couple of times I've been somewhere, like on the subway or somewhere where it's crowded and people can't really see me, and I will actually hear somebody say to somebody else, "No soup for you." And I'm actually 10 people away and they don't even know that I'm there, but I hear people say it. I actually wrote a book called Confessions of a Soup Nazi, an adventure in acting and cooking, which is part cookbook, part memoirs of, 30, 40 years of being an actor. But the reason I wrote it is because I get so many people that come up to me and they go, "You were so great on Seinfeld. Did you ever do any other acting after that?" So, but I get all kinds of stuff. I get people that think I'm really Al Yeganay, and that's, I was at your soup stand. I visited New York and I was at your soup stand and, it was closed. When do you plan on reopening? And I have so much fun with going I'm an actor. It's not my soup stand. It's, The funniest thing about how my life has changed after Seinfeld is I had no idea that the life I had was gone forever. Not a moment goes by in my life where it doesn't have something to do with having been the Soup Nazi. Really, an hour goes by and something happens where that takes over my life again. So it's a whole new existence. Where do I think the Soup Nazi would be now? Well, then I have to pitch my idea for a spin-off because, see, I see a food court in Manhattan where the Soup Nazi, Babu, and Poppy are all in a row with their respective little stands, and Jackie Childs comes in there every day for lunch, and we vie for his business, of course. Whatever the storylines are about, or whatever actually the events that happen in every episode, it really boils down to the way people treat each other. They didn't treat people very well. You got to admit that. I know people loved, Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer, but they were horrible. They treated people badly, and they always got their comeuppance for treating people badly. So I guess in the end, that's such a generational and universal, never-ending idea is you treat people a certain way and you get back the way, it's like the golden rule. You get back what you give. And that's really what the show is about in the
Coming out of this crazy year, what are you looking forward to the most when life really gets back to normal?
I'm looking forward to going to restaurants and museums and just kind of like spending a day wandering around, interacting with just all that